Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for the GC Children's Conference. I'm Monica Strester from Q Design and I'm accompanied by my colleague Kavya Rizal. We will be your technical facilitators today. Please note that the session today is recorded and live streamed. We also have interpretation in Spanish, Portuguese, Nepali, and English today. To turn on interpretation, please click on the globe icon at the bottom of your Zoom window and select language of choice. To ensure the interpretation is effective, when you're speaking, please make sure to speak slowly. If you have any questions about Zoom or require technical assistance, please feel free to raise your hand or drop a message into the chat box. I will now hand over to Raina. Raina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica, for that technical introduction. Very much appreciated. Yes, as Monica was saying, I'm Raina Marie Loader, and I'm the Children's Rights Project Manager of the Global Campus of Human Rights. And I've been very much part of this process ever since we started it in September of last year. And it's been a hugely inspiring 6 months. And I feel really honored to have been able to work with so many dedicated individuals, especially the 111 children across the 9 countries we engage with throughout this process. I wish you all a wonderful conference over the next few days. Our child protection and safeguarding focal point for the day is Sangara Kunwar from the NCRC in Nepal. So please, if you do want to raise anything, she would be the contact there. And unfortunately, also for obvious reasons, we couldn't meet in person as originally intended in Nepal for this conference. But we are now almost 400 individuals registered to participate across the 2 days in this conference. And due to the technical difficulties of all of that, not everybody has speaking privileges, technically speaking, but the chat is open, so please do participate there. And we've also created a Padlet, the link of which will be put in the chat for you. Please do use it, add your contributions, add your thoughts. We've done our best to really translate as much as possible into the 8 languages that are actively participating in the conference. It would be great to also have that as a place where thoughts can be shared. But with no further ado, I would like to ask Monica to start an introductory video with a few welcoming words from Manfred Novak, Veronica Gomez, and Yubaraj Sangrula. Please, Monica. We can't hear the sound, Monica. Because we're not hearing it.
Looks like there is some issue with Zoom. Let me quickly check.
Yeah, no sound is coming through.
Are you able to hear?
I will do that, yeah.
Sorry?
I can definitely try and share it from my end.
Hi, a very, very warm welcome to this Global Campus International and Child-led Conference on mental health in Kathmandu, the perspectives of children and the challenges and the way forward. My name is Manfred Nowak. I'm Secretary General of the Global Campus of Human Rights, which is a network of 100 universities. We are organizing 7 master programs in different regions of the world, including in the Asia-Pacific region. Since we have a very close cooperation with the Right Livelihood Foundation, that is on children's rights, our recent international conferences that bring together participants from all the different regions are focusing more on children's rights. And child participation is a very, very important element of that. The last international conference took place in Yerevan in 2021. It was about climate justice with a strong child participation element. But this conference in Kathmandu, that really goes a major step forward. And that means it is not only done with child participation and involvement, it is child-led. We developed many different consultations in all the different regions where the children were discussing in a long process what finally decided it's mental health, which is not surprising. It has to do with the COVID-19 pandemic and its consequences, but also with the right to education. And I'm very happy that that is really decided by children. And we are now developing it further in our Global Campus Children's Leadership Group. And I would like to also thank very much a few individuals. First of all, Yubarai Sangula, who is the director of the Kathmandu School of Law, together with Ravi Prakash, who is our friend and colleague in the Global Campus Council. Manu Krishan did quite a lot in preparing it. He's primarily responsible for the global study, but did a lot on the child participation together with Rena Marie Loda, the Global Campus Children's Rights Manager, and Victor Karunan, who is a specialist on child participation. Thank you very much for your input. And I wish you for the next 2 days, where we are splitting you up into 2 groups because of time differences, a lot of interesting discussions. First of all, children and young people, but also all the stakeholders of the Global Campus, that is our students, our alumni, our professors, experts from intergovernmental, non-governmental organizations, civil society stakeholders, etc. I wish you a very, very successful and interesting conference in the coming 2 days. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Veronica Gomez. I am president of the Global Campus of Human Rights and member of the steering committee of Right Livelihood Foundation. Welcome to this international conference, to the participants from international organizations, civil society, and academia, and most important, to children from all over the world. This year, the Global Campus International Conference is unique as the theme and process was decided by children from all over the world. The Global Campus and its regional programs work closely, first with children from Nepal and thereafter from all regions of the world for the last 6 months in order to facilitate multiple national consultations. In total, 10 national consultations in 5 regions of the world were held. The countries where consultations were held included Nepal, India, Armenia, South Africa, Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Lebanon, and Italy. In total, we reached out to 111 children, and 17 of these children were selected by their peers to represent them in a leadership team that held 5 more international sessions. Special thanks to all these children who have been instrumental in the process. They devoted long hours and weekends to this endeavor. Special thanks also to the Global Campus regional child rights officers that accompanied the consultations. You, the participating young change makers, have been instrumental in planning this event and its structure, in showing leadership in asking the right questions and selecting the themes of mental health and education for this global conference. This has a transcendent meaning for your present as children and your future as adults. The Global Campus of Human Rights takes this opportunity to listen and learn from you in order to support you in creating a healthier future for all based on the promise of informed global citizenship. Thank you for leading this initiative.
Human rights and democratization, अर्थात् मानवाधिकार तथा प्रजातान्त्रिकरणको मास्टर डिग्रीको जुन कार्यक्रम छ त्यसलाई हामी अंग्रेजीमा आत्मा भन्ने गर्छौं त्यसको ग्लोबल क्याम्पस छ अर्थात् विभिन्न क्षेत्रका यी क्याम्पसहरुबाट ग्लोबल क्याम्पस बन्छ उनीहरु सबैले एउटा सञ्चालन गर्दै आएको यो बच्चा-बच्चीको बालबालिकाको मानवाधिकार सम्बन्धी जुन एउटा अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय कार्यक्रम हो त्यसको लागि हामीले हाम्रो तयारी कम्प्लिट गरेका छौं मेरो नाम युवराज चन्द्रमला हो म काठमाडौँ स्कुल अफ लको एक्जिक्युटिभ डाइरेक्टर म प्राध्यापक हो 13 जना विद्यार्थीहरुको एउटा सर्वेक्षणबाट उनीहरुका चाहनाहरु उनीहरुका अभिलाषाहरु केन्द्रित भएका छन् र अब उनीहरु सहित यो भाग लिएको एउटा सम्मेलन हुन्छ यो बालबालिकाको मनोवैज्ञानिक स्वास्थ्यको बारेमा यसपालिको कन्फरेन्स हो त्यो सम्मेलनमा खास गरी अहिलेको कोभिड 19 ले पारेको जुन एउटा असर हो त्यो असरबाट बालबालिकाहरुमा परेको उनीहरुको अधिकारको उल्लङ्घन उनीहरुको मनोविज्ञानको असर जस्ता कुराहरुमा उनीहरुले छलफल गर्छन् र त्यसमा काठमाडौँ स्कुल अफ ल यो आत्मा अर्थात् ह्युमन राइट एन्ड डेमोक्रेटाइजेसन मास्टर डिग्री प्रोग्रामको एउटा सेन्टरको रूपमा रहेको हुनाले यहाँबाट नेपाली 13 जना विद्यार्थीहरुले कलेजको तर्फबाट प्रस्तुत गर्छन् र यो अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय सम्मेलनमा उनीहरुले आफ्ना विचारहरु राख्छन् त्यो विचारहरुमा खास गरी उनीहरुले नेपालको अवस्था बालबालिकाको अधिकारको कुरा र उनीहरुको मनोविज्ञानको कुरा गर्छन् यता विगत 20 वर्षमा नेपालभित्र धेरै राजनीतिक परिवर्तनहरु भएका छन् हामीसँग बच्चा-बच्चीहरुको मानव अधिकारलाई संरक्षण गर्ने संविधान निर्माण भएको छ र हामीसँग बालबालिकाको अलग्गै आयोग छ मन्त्रालय छ र बालबालिकाका लागि विभिन्न खालका कार्यक्रमहरु पनि छन् त्यसकारण दक्षिण एसियामा बालबालिकाको अधिकारको संरक्षणको सन्दर्भमा नेपालको एउटा अग्रणी भूमिका छ अहिले तत्काल हाम्रो बन्दै गरेको पूर्वाञ्चल विश्वविद्यालयको जुन सेमिस्टर सिस्टमको नयाँ पाठ्यक्रममा अनुसन्धान भइरहेछ त्यसभित्र बच्चा-बच्ची सम्बन्धी कानुन अलग्गै एउटा विषयको रूपमा रहन्छ र यो सबै कुराहरु अहिलेको यो सम्मेलनमा बालबालिकाले व्यक्त गरेका कुराहरुबाट त्यो कोर्स बनाउन समेत हामीलाई चाहिँ धेरै ठूलो मद्दत हुन्छ त्यसैले काठमाडौँ स्कुल अफ ल बच्चा-बच्चीको अधिकारको बारेमा संलग्न भएको संस्था हो र नेपालमा जुभेनाइल जस्टिस बाल न्यायको बारेमा विचारोपण गर्ने संस्था पनि यो भएको हुनाले यो रेस्पोन्सिबिलिटी हामीले धेरै पहिलादेखि सम्पादन गर्दै आएको छौं र यो सम्मेलनलाई हामी एकदम भव्यतापूर्वक सफल गर्छौं र यो कन्फरेन्स गर्न ग्लोबल क्याम्पस संलग्न छ र त्यसलाई सहयोग गर्नको लागि विभिन्न संस्थाहरू छन् नेपालका बालबालिका सम्बन्धी संस्थाहरू त्यसैगरी मानव अधिकार आयोग त्यसैगरी युनिसेफ लगायतका विभिन्न संस्थाहरू यसमा संलग्न छन् उनीहरूसँग सहकार्य गर्न हामी पहिलेदेखि संलग्न हुँदै आएको हो उहाँहरू सबैलाई धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु यो सम्मेलनमा संलग्न हुनुभएकोमा र यो प्रोजेक्टलाई डिजाइन गर्ने कुरामा मनफ्रेडको पहिलेदेखि भूमिका छ र उसको संलग्नताप्रति पनि हामी खुसी छौँ
Thank you very much for all three of our colleagues sending through those videos. I don't want to speak much more because it's not about us, it's about the children who've been working with us over the last 6 months. We've had a session, as you see in the program before this one, where children from Lebanon, India, Armenia, Nepal, and Italy joined. And this session is focused on Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, South Africa, and Nepal. I would like to hand over the floor to our colleagues in South Africa, with Shelby giving us a bit of an overview for the agenda of today. Thank you, Shelby. Over to you.
Hello, everyone, and a big warm welcome from South Africa. We'd just like to start off with a big thanks to everyone who has put their time and effort in to be here today and who has attended all the conferences. So the agenda for the day is we're starting off with lack of educational mechanisms for mental health, and that will be a 25-minute discussion. And our moderator will be Clarissa from Ecuador. Following on with mental health impact of violence against children and teenagers, which is again 25 minutes, with our moderators being Maria and Pedro from Brazil. And our third one being unhealthy competition and mental health, which is another 25-minute discussion with Lum as our moderator. We will then be having a 10-minute health break and then a 25-minute discussion on the highlights of the day with the moderator of Anthony from Chile. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Shelby. We've got quite a bit to get through today, so I will immediately hand over to our first moderators of the day, which is Clarissa from Ecuador, and we'll be discussing the lack of education mechanisms for mental health. Clarissa, over to you.
Ya, muy buenos días. Primero me voy a presentar para los que no me conozcan. Mi nombre es Clarissa Sandoval, tengo 11 años, estudio en la Unidad Educativa Católica Mariano Negrete, represento al Ecuador Cantón Mejía y eso es lo único que yo puedo decir sobre mí. Espero sacar todo lo mejor de mí en esta moderación que voy a hacer el día de hoy. Muchas gracias.
Excellent, Clarissa. If we can ask any children from the group that want to contribute something about mental health and the educational mechanism and the lack thereof, please do raise your hands. And Clarissa, please do invite. We've got one hand up, Clarissa.
Sí, tiene la palabra Shelby.
Thank you, Clarissa. This is Lum. I'm with Shelby. I'd just like to state that I find that in our community and in our country, we do discuss mental health, but we never really do go into detail about different types of mental health issues and how to support and help those with different mental health issues.
Yes, and the small differences between similar diagnoses and the difference in how to treat them and everything that comes when you have medication. And I feel there is a lack of knowledge being shared about how to handle everything.
And
Ya, muchas gracias. Ya, el tema a tratar el día de hoy es la falta de mecanismos educativos para la salud mental. Yo creo que ya podemos empezar a dar sus ideas. Regina tiene la palabra.
So about the lack of mechanism, as you have the major theme of mental health, and within that we have the first subtopic of lack of mechanism. Within that, I hope that I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible. Carry on.
Okay, so within that, basically in our country, Nepal, I think yeah, it's affect a lot. As we don't have as much that the topic of mental health within the curriculum, and also as we also do know that mental health and education are interrelated. If we are not mentally fit, we can't get proper education, and we can't, if we don't have proper education, then we will not be aware how to keep our mental health healthy. So how could we be healthy mentally as well? So on that behalf, so also in this COVID time, because of this COVID, there come lots of hindrance in our education system also, because we don't used to have the online education system before, but we induced that because of the COVID-19. But in that case also, is every student here are not have the access to the mobile phones and internet. So there also comes unequal gap that some children can't get the education properly because they can't afford it. And because that also children were so disturbed, like mostly in the COVID situation, I think the children are the one, yeah, other also get affected, but I think children are the one who get mostly affected, because they are unable to think what's going on, like why everything is not normal as per usual, why we can't go to the school, why we can't go to out to play, and why everything is not as per usual. And so because of that, I think in that period children needs the most counseling and support guidance of the and proper uh, guidance of the parents in their home. And besides that, and in education system, as we have the so much competitive and only theoretical based education system, so I think there are lots of things need to be improved. So that's why the need of counselor in the school are seem at the must, and like that way things are need to be improved so many ways, from our levels, from our home, from society, and yes, obviously in the school mostly. So that's it. Thank you.
y a darles el paso a tal persona.
Muchas gracias. Me gustaría oír la opinión de Christopher Narváez.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Christopher Narváez, tengo la edad de 11 años, estudio en la Escuela de Educación General Básica Segundo Miguel Salazar, barrio La Estación. Represento al Cantón Mejía y al Ecuador. Sobre la pregunta, yo creo que es bastante importante, ya que esto no se da a conocer mucho en algunos casos de las instituciones. Y también si es que queremos tener una mente sana, tendríamos que también tener nuestro cuerpo sano. Así que sí se puede limpiar la mente al igual que se puede nuestro cuerpo. Gracias.
Gracias. Pedro Oliveira tiene la palabra.
Bom dia, gente. Meu nome é Pedro, tenho 17 anos e sou daqui do Brasil. É muito bom estar aqui juntamente com vocês nesse momento maravilhoso e extraordinário para os direitos da criança e do adolescente. Então, eu concordo com a fala de nossa amiga que falou anteriormente. Eu não identifiquei quem foi, mas eu acho bastante interessante oferecer atendimento psicológico para os nossos alunos, né, o tratamento psicológico dentro das escolas, porque hoje em dia a gente vive um momento atípico na nossa história, na vida dos nossos adolescentes, crianças e jovens, certo? Onde afetou muito a saúde mental de todos nós, não só os jovens, mas todos nós sabemos que os adolescentes, crianças e jovens estão na ponta dessa pandemia. Então, outra sugestão também, contribuição que até a gente falou em reuniões passadas, que acho que até a Reina lembra, é que a gente falou muito sobre a orientação dos pais, porque muitas das vezes muitos pais pensam que depressão, automutilação ou pensamentos, enfim, é frescura. Então, oferecer atendimento psicológico para os alunos e orientação para os pais é de extrema importância. E se encaixa muito bem nesse tema, porque educação e saúde mental estão ligadas a nível externo. E é isso. Obrigado.
Muchas gracias. Boxer de SF Chile.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. O sea, perdón, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Pues este tema en particular siento yo que es un tema muy complejo, muy complicado. Y claro, ahora los escucho hablar a todos ustedes y la verdad es que las situaciones son muy similares y teniendo en cuenta, por ejemplo, que estamos en países tan diferentes, en lugares tan diferentes, las experiencias, las vivencias y lo que ustedes ahora nos están contando es muy similar a lo que a nosotros nos pasa acá en Chile. Ejemplo de eso es claro, en Chile no hay recursos suficientes como para que todos los colegios tengan como el apoyo suficiente para darle a sus estudiantes. Así un colegio municipal quisiera acá en Chile apoyar a sus estudiantes, no pudiese, porque es muy complicado conseguir recursos, ayuda de los garantes de derechos que hay acá, por temas de falta, ¿no? Entonces es muy complicado en ese sentido y aparte hay colegios que en sí no se preocupan tanto por este aspecto. Salud mental, como bien lo dijo, ay, perdón, no sé quién era. Sí, Christopher. Salud mental es un tema que pues ahora en pandemia ha venido a afectar demasiado y que nos ha pasado a llevar rotundamente, o sea, no hemos recibido ayuda o la necesaria de parte de nuestros padres porque, claro, ellos tampoco están informados, así que no es totalmente su culpa, pero tampoco de los garantes de derechos que vendría siendo, no sé, profesores, los ministerios de educación actualmente, el mundo en sí, o sea, todos son garantes de derechos y tienen el deber de protegernos y resguardarnos, cosas que no están haciendo. Y creo que esto, lo que es la pandemia, ha venido a incentificar mucho lo que es este tema y por eso actualmente es tan debatiente y tan significante para nosotros, tanto así que actualmente tú puedes hablar de salud mental y es como avala muchas cosas en sí. Y claro, como escuchaba por ahí también, eso afecta mucho en cosas de los estudios, porque te marea la cabeza, o sea, afecta demasiado en cosas de concentración, de vivir, te dan ganas de dejarlo y muchas cosas. Y eso es. Gracias.
Gracias. Christopher Narváez, por favor.
Ya, acatando lo que dijo Pedro, sí, también la salud mental en algunos países no se da bastante a conocer en su gobierno y eso es muy, muy difícil, ya que, como dije anteriormente, la salud mental ya no es algo que se respete mucho en estos días de pandemia y por eso creo que nuestro gobierno no se preocupa mucho. La solución podría ser que nuestros gobiernos pudieran hacer áreas donde nosotros podamos hablar con algún especialista y lo más importante, acceder gratuitamente, porque no es que todos consten con los recursos necesarios como para entrar pagado allá. Así que sí sería bueno que nuestro gobierno haga espacios para nosotros poder dialogar con algún doctor.
Sí, la salud mental es un tema muy extenso de verdad y que nosotros hablando de eso vamos a poder sacar demasiadas ideas. Tomando en cuenta la idea de la señorita de Chile, nosotros en esta pandemia hemos pasado por muchas cosas y yo creo que la solución sería empezar a hablar sobre este tema, dando a conocer a las demás personas que este tema es muy extenso y que nosotros podemos hacer llegar a todo el mundo para poder seguir avanzando y que este tema siga creciendo. Ya, Shelby y Lum, doy el paso, puede hablar.
Yeah, I agree completely with everything that our colleagues from Ecuador and Chile have said. I think in a big part of in helping combat mental health, I think we really have to work towards destigmatizing the topic of mental health. Because I think in our societies and with our parents and stuff, sometimes we don't talk about mental health because it's considered a taboo topic. I think also, especially in the aftermath of the pandemic, I think there's an increase in like social anxiety and depression in the youth, but it's not something that maybe a lot of children feel comfortable discussing with their parents. So I think we could reach out to governments to have them implement mental health discussions and destigmatization of mental health discussions in school curriculums and so on.
Yeah, I think it's also very important to start learning about mental health at a young age at a school level, because it is important that you understand from a young age that if someone is acting a certain way, that there might be a deeper meaning to it and there might be a more important message behind it. And I know at our school we have LO, which is life orientation, and SEL, which is social and emotional learning lessons, where we do start to talk about this stuff, but it's not in depth enough. And it's very important to be able to understand how everything works and the implications of mental health and how to treat people with mental health and how you could treat yourself as a person struggling with mental health. And also how it affects people differently, whether you're in a first world country or maybe a third world country. And this is already speaking from a place of privilege where I go to a school where we already have subjects like these. But I think it's very important that we branch it out and spread it to a bit more people to let it become more accessible. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Sí, es verdad, el municipio debería comprender más este tema de la salud mental. Bueno, ahora quisiera abrir el debate para los señores expertos que nos ayuden con las soluciones para poder mejorar nuestra salud mental. Perfecto. Najat tiene la palabra, señorita.
Muchas gracias, Clarissa. I will just try really to summarize what you did. I am Najat Malamjid. I am from Morocco. I am pediatrician, and I am 62 years old. So I worked with children since many, many years, and those who were in difficult circumstances. And I am currently the special representative of the UN Secretary General on Violence Against Children. And one of my first reports was about mental health before COVID, just to let you know, related to all the impact of violence, discrimination, inequalities, on mental health. And the COVID came and it magnified it, and it shows only the tip of the iceberg of all the mental health. I just want to react to what you are telling. Very quickly. First, I think the big problem, the mental health is a neglected area worldwide. And this is really shown. We have no strong political commitment in many countries. This is one. And it's translated by a lack of resources, human and financial resources. The COVID gave us the opportunity to highlight, the need for mental health and psychosocial support, because we saw the rise of, mental health disorder, anxiety, depression, sleeping disorder, suicide, and so on. But just I want to remind that mental health disorder and suicide were already very high before the COVID, just to let you know. So the COVID provided the opportunity to highlight this issue and to see mental health as a life-saving service during not only the pandemic, but during also all the ongoing humanitarian crisis. What I heard also about one point you raised is inequalities. And this is important, really, regarding, the fact to the closing of school, remote learning, and the lack of access to online. We saw many children also who have no access to school, but no access also to psychosocial support, to mental health guidance. And the other thing that you highlight, and I love it, it's a right. It's really a right. So we need to remind duty bearers who are policymakers that this right has to be implemented, and to have free access and to avoid inequalities. And I think this also is important. The other point is also the lack of resources. You are speaking about the lack of resources, financial and human resources, about teachers, about counselors, and so. But the problem is also the lack of quality and of training. They are not able to detect, they are not able to anticipate. And this we can see really very quickly, detect very earlier. Many children in schools have no opportunity to speak about it. With whom? Because of the fear of, lack of privacy, because of stigma, because of shame. And in some countries, it is very difficult to speak about, a mental health problem. Another point that was highlighted by Brazil, Pedro, if I am not wrong, mental health is not only the problem of the health sector. All the other sectors have to intervene, because poverty, if we are not fighting inequalities, if we are not fighting poverty, if we are not fighting discrimination, if the Ministry of Education is not involved, if we are not providing parenting and guidance, if we are not working on all the other components, we are not going to build a healthy mentally and physically environment for children. And the other point I want very quickly really to highlight is also seeing, and currently this is what we are doing, seeing, building back better to school as a strong opportunity to review the educative schools and educative settings since the early childhood, because mental health touch also really the young children. So we need to invest in it and to build an inclusive, safe, empowering, just schools and this educative setting. And I think all of us, you also, children and young people, have to be involved. And what we saw, you didn't highlight it, and I want to congratulate you. We did a mapping, and what we saw, it was a wonderful reactivity you had, because you took the floor and you start providing peer-to-peer support, guidance, building networks among yourself. And this is wonderful, and I think we need to see you also more and more as actors involving in preventing and responding, with abuse, certainly building that kind of staff support done by psychologists and so on. And the last but not the least, I think it's important, and you highlight is fighting stigma. I am coming from countries when speaking about, mental health, not feeling well, it's not easy, and many children and mainly girls have many difficulties because speaking about it is feeling guilty, and mainly which is a consequence of cyberbullying, of bullying, of sexual harassment. It's very difficult also to speak about it. So I really appreciate also the fact that you were telling we need to raise awareness, to show what happens, and to discuss this, and to make it, more and more normal to speak about it, and to have the good response and also the good mechanism. I will stop here for the moment. Thank you. Over to you.
Ya, muchísimas gracias. Sí, es verdad. Creo que todos deberíamos hacer un compromiso con nosotros mismos para poder fortalecer nuestra salud y nuestra mente. Y de paso quiero agradecerle por su participación, porque gracias a ustedes vamos a poder reunir más puntos para seguir aprendiendo más de la salud mental. Tal vez alguien más que quiera participar dándonos sus ideas. Ya. Christopher Narváez tiene la palabra, por favor.
Sí, aprovechando que estamos con el tema de los adultos profesionales, quisiera preguntar sobre la salud mental en los adolescentes. Esto hemos charlado que es bastante importante, ya que los adolescentes a veces se quedan solos en casa, no tienen con quién charlar. Entonces, algún profesional que esté por la reunión, quisiera preguntarle que cómo se podría tratar los síntomas de la salud mental en un adolescente antes de que suceda, porque por mi parte yo tengo un hermano mayor que ya tiene 15 años y a veces yo tengo que salir a las reuniones con mi mamá y mi papá a trabajar y él se queda solo en casa. Y entonces hay miedo en mi casa que pues suceda algo, ya que mi hermano no tiene con quién charlar, y creo que hablo por todos que tienen hermanos mayores, ya que ellos se quedan solos en casa y los adolescentes se han vuelto máquinas de hacer deberes, o sea, mandan deberes clases y no han tenido tiempo para salir ni a respirar. Entonces creo que ese tema es bastante importante y quiero preguntar que cómo se trata y cuáles son los síntomas.
¿Alguna persona que nos quiera ayudar a responder la pregunta que nos hizo Christopher, por favor? El doctora Naja tiene la palabra, por favor.
Sorry to taking the
Doctora.
floor again, but as I am a pediatrician and I was working, with not only children, in clinics and in hospital, but also I ran an NGO working with children on street, children victims of violence and so on. So I really heard what was raised, the isolation, that was made by the COVID and the confinement. But I need also to highlight that you have other kind of isolation before the pandemic. So what we can do as professionals, I think what is important regarding, the fact that when children and teenagers are isolated, having nobody to speak with, and I think this is important also, it's the role also of parents, of teachers, when schools are open. He's the right to see, and what I told in the beginning is how we can detect, when you see a children or a teenager who is not speaking, who is always alone and responding only by words, and sometimes it seems that he is here without being here. So you need really to open this door and to have recreative, action, to have leisure action. And this recreation and leisure and sport is also part of mental well-being. It's also part of health. This is one. The other thing, currently, we are working, with the ICT sector and with the ITU to make also the ICT sector, because children and teenagers are more and more connected, and they are spending a lot of time in front of not only about learning, but also about playing. But what is important, how we can have also this guidance and this support, and having this kind of dialogue when this teenager can also express themselves, and in the same time have the good guidance when he can or she can reach, really a kind of support. And it starts happening in some countries, and we are pushing more and more, using the fact also that the ICT sector has also a big role to play in really putting this dialogue and also this connection between professional and also between mechanisms that, psychosocial mechanisms, but things when we can report. This is very important. But I want to come back to children and teenagers again. The network made within, social platform are really, really important. And many, many teenagers are speaking more easily with the others than speaking with their brothers or with their parents. So I think what we can do, and I am committed really to work with you on it, this we are doing it, is how we can strengthen also all these child-led and youth-led platforms, providing you the guidance, because it's not easy when you are talking with somebody who is going to tell you, I am going really to suicide. So you don't have an idea, and it's very heavy for you. So we need also to support you and to provide you the guidance and the professional guidance. Over to you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Vamos a continuar con Shelby y Lum, por favor.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. I just wanted to circle back to Christopher's example that he gave. I think also we need to take into account the fact that discussions around mental health are different or at least I think that they're different for boys and girls, for men and women. I think there's more stigma around men discussing mental health issues, particularly boys, because I think during this period of adolescence, I think boys really close off and talk less and less about the things that they are faced with. I go to an all-girls school, so I don't have first-hand experience with maybe how men and boys deal with mental health issues. So I think I'd like to invite the other male participants to talk more about how they experience mental health issues and stigma around that with the gender that they are.
Gracias, sí. Vamos con Shekton. Mil disculpas si no lo puedo pronunciar bien, es que a mí se me complica un poquito por mi idioma. Mil disculpas.
I'm just checking, is it, my name is Anne. Am I the next one who should speak? Okay, good. So my name is Anne Skelton.
Sí, perfectamente.
Good. It's wonderful to be here with you. I'm South African, but right now I'm in Geneva in Switzerland because I'm attending a meeting of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. And I'm sure you're aware of the work that the committee does. So I'm a member of the committee. I actually have a legal background, so I'm not as well qualified to advise you on mental health issues as Dr. Najat is. But I can still say that in my work, I have worked a lot with adolescents who are going through maybe in some instances mental health issues, but also just going through adolescence, which in itself is really quite a trying time. And what I know from my work is that we are learning, as the scientists are finding out, that the brain during adolescence goes through many different changes very quickly. And that actually is the reason why sometimes adolescents seem to be going through and exhibiting more challenging behavior even than younger children, right? And here I do have some experience because I was a bit of a crazy teenager myself, but I did actually then, you know, grow up to be kind of normal after all. And that is an important part of this conversation as well, because what you're saying, I think, what I've been hearing from you is, well, we want to understand mental health more, and we want to know what are the signs that there's something serious going on? And that has to be understood within the context that during adolescence, there's quite a lot of behavior and thoughts that are probably normal for that age as well. But it is important to be able to recognize when is it that and when is it something to be much more concerned about. And I also hear you saying that you want to, particularly in the school environment, which is now, of course, not always, it's sometimes a virtual environment, which makes it more complicated. But I think I'm hearing you say that you want an environment that is promoting mental health well-being. I was in a meeting with other young people the other day, and one of the young women said, well, we all have mental health. Some of us have good mental health, and some of us are going through a stage where our mental health is not so good. And that's important to realize that at all times, we want to be trying to ensure that we are in environments that promote our positive mental health. And I can hear from what you're saying that you're aware of that, and that you're thinking about what's available in your school, and you're thinking about what else could be added. So that's very interesting, and I hope that what comes out of your work that you're doing in this forum is perhaps you can identify the factors that would be necessary to create a positive environment for mental health. What should a school look like if it is an environment that promotes positive mental health, good mental health, as well as the other things that you're asking, which is having obtained that, what would then be the resources that you need to be able to access the services that are required for children who are going through a mental health crisis, which might, of course, not mean that they're going to always be in a mental health crisis, but at that time they're in a mental health crisis and they need support and they need services. And what are the referral mechanisms going to be? So in other words, who should that young person speak to in order to get assistance? And what knowledge does everyone around them, their peers, need to be able to encourage them to speak up when they're feeling that they really need help? So I think you're busy with very important work, and what I can tell you is that the committee will be very interested in hearing from you when you have finished with your deliberations. I'm sure there'll be documents that will come out of this, and I'll share them. If you send them to me, I will share them with the Committee on the Rights of the Child, because we're all here in Geneva at the moment. 1 or 2 people couldn't make it because of the COVID pandemic, but you are welcome to send your recommendations and your thoughts and your ideas to us. And we can also ask the states that come to the committee whether they are creating positive environments to promote good mental health and clear mechanisms for referral for health services when they're required. So I invite you, please send us your ideas, and we will definitely take them into consideration in our deliberations going forward.
Muchas gracias por su participación. Por cuestiones de tiempo vamos a terminar con Sajina Paraya. Tiene la palabra, por favor.
Thank you. मलाई चाहिँ अवसर दिनुभएकोमा अब म पनि एउटा यङस्टरै हो। अब यो अवस्थामा चाहिँ अब हामीहरूले मानसिक समस्याहरू धेरै भोगिरहेका हुन्छौँ। अब खास भन्नुपर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब किशोर अवस्थामा बढी हामीहरूको मनहरू चञ्चल हुने, धेरै क्वेसन्सहरू रेज हुने भइरहेको हुन्छ। अब मैले खास अघिको प्रश्नको उत्तर दिन चाहन्छु। अब किशोर अवस्था भनेको नै अब 10 वर्षदेखि 19 वर्षको उमेरलाई चाहिँ किशोर अवस्था भनिन्छ हैन। अब यो उमेरमा चाहिँ यो उमेरको बालबालिकाहरूको समूहमा चाहिँ व्यक्तिहरू धेरै जिज्ञासु हुने, चञ्चल हुन्छन्, अनि उनीहरू चाहिँ कुनै विषयमा चाहिँ सजिलै निर्णय लिन सक्दैनन्। उनीहरूले कुनै फिक्स डिसिजन चाहिँ लिन सक्दैनन्। यो उमेरमा चाहिँ प्रजङ्ग अङ्गहरूको चाहिँ पूर्ण विकास हुन्छ पनि, साथै विपरीत लिङ्गहरूसँग पनि आकर्षक हुन्छन्। मनमा कौतूहलताहरू बढ्छन्, प्रश्नहरू धेरै उठ्छन्, अनि त्यसैको साथै अब उनीहरूको उमेर अनुसार मनमा भएका कुराहरूको समक्ष रूपमा उनीहरूको मनमा भइरहेको क्वेसनहरूलाई चाहिँ अरूहरूसँग राख्नको लागि अनि अरूहरूलाई भन्न उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ असजिलो भइरहेको हुन्छ। अनि मनमा उब्जिएका कौतूहलता प्रश्नहरूको बेलामा उनीहरूले प्रश्नको उत्तर पाएनन् भनेपछि चाहिँ उनीहरू समस्याको समाधान गर्न नसक्ने हुन्छन्। त्यसैले अहिले उनीहरूले चाहिँ अहिलेको यो किशोर अवस्थामा चाहिँ हामीहरूले चाहिँ आफ्नो विश्वासिलो साथी वा सहयोगी पात्रहरूलाई चाहिँ पहिचान गर्नुपर्ने आवश्यकता हुन्छ। उनीहरूको सहयोगमा अब मनमा उब्जेका कौतूहलता र प्रश्नहरूको सही समाधान खोज्ने चाहिँ एउटा पाटो हुन्छ, जसको गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामीहरूलाई यस्तो मानसिक समस्याहरू आइरहेको छ भनेपछि अब हामीले विश्वासिलो पात्रलाई भन्यौँ भनेपछि चाहिँ त्यसको सही समाधान हुन सक्छ। र यदि हामीले डिसिजन लिन सकेनौँ, अब यो सही पात्र होइन भनेपछि चाहिँ हामीहरूले जो पात्रलाई हामीले विश्वास गरेर भनेका छौँ त्यही पात्रबाट चाहिँ हामीहरूमाथि चाहिँ दुर्व्यवहार हुन सक्छ, शोषण हुन सक्छ। त्यसैले चाहिँ बेलामा चाहिँ हाम्रो आफ्नो विश्वासिलो पात्रहरूलाई चाहिँ हामीले पहिचान गर्न आवश्यकता छ। र अहिलेको यो जुन इस्यु उठिरहेको छ मानसिक समस्याको बारेमा, त्यसमा चाहिँ अब हामीहरू किशोरीहरूले चाहिँ हामीले यदि घरमा एक्लै भइरहेका छौँ र अहिले पनि घर परिवारबाट के सहयोग मिलिरहेको छैन भनेपछि चाहिँ हामीहरूले आफै डिसिजन गर्न सक्नुपर्छ। अनि साथै अहिलेको यो कोभिड-19ले पनि बालबालिकामा धेरै असर परिरहेको छ। यस्तो अवस्थामा चाहिँ हामीहरूले आफ्नो मानसिक समस्यालाई कसरी समाधान गर्न सक्छौँ भनेपछि चाहिँ हामीहरूले नोभेलहरू पढ्न सक्छौँ, अनि त्यसपछि स्टोरीहरू, जर्नलहरू लेख्न सक्छौँ, योगाहरू गर्न सक्छौँ, साथै नाच्ने, गाउने या आफूलाई पोइट्रीहरू लेख्न मन छ भने पोइट्रीहरू लेख्ने त्यस्तो पनि गर्न सक्छौँ। अब अहिलेको युगमा हेर्ने हो भने चाहिँ अहिले टेक्नोलोजीले पनि धेरै अगाडि टेक्नोलोजीको पनि धेरै अगाडि बढिसकेको छ। त्यसबाट पनि हामी इन्टरनेटद्वारा आफ्नो साथीहरूसँग पनि इन्टरेक्ट गर्न सक्छौँ। त्यसरी गीतहरू सुन्ने अनि प्रेयरहरू गर्ने त्यस्तो गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामीहरूले चाहिँ अलिकति मानसिक समस्याहरूबाट चाहिँ अलिकति चाहिँ पर बस्न सक्छौँ। मेरो चाहिँ यति हो। थ्याङ्क यू।
Ya. Voy a agradecer a todas las personas que han participado en este momento, a los niños y a los expertos que nos han ayudado aportando ideas de igual manera. Y bueno, creo que ya es momento de casi terminar porque voy a dar las conclusiones que salieron de todas sus propuestas. Ya. Tengo muchas, pero voy a hacer como un resumen porque es muy largo y el tiempo falta, entonces yo voy a decir ahora. Primero, cuando nosotros vamos a hablar sobre salud mental, nos podemos dar cuenta que en los adolescentes y niños hay varios tipos de comportamientos que son buenos y a veces malos. Ya. También hemos trabajado en la violencia sobre los niños, el COVID, que no tenemos acceso para ingresar a clases. También podemos decir que el acceso debería ser gratuito para la educación en este tiempo de pandemia. También ha causado la salud mental, la pobreza y muchas cosas más que han afectado a nuestra mente. En nuestra mente debemos tener una mente limpia. ¿Qué significa eso? Que no debemos tener, que debemos pensar en cómo nos afectaría nuestra mente, nuestro espíritu y nuestro cuerpo. Entonces, creo que esos son 3 puntos importantes que deberíamos darnos cuenta en la salud mental. También que en la salud mental incluye el bienestar emocional y en eso hay emociones buenas y malas. Emociones buenas podría ser la felicidad, la diversión, la confianza. También podría, en las emociones malas, negativas, está la desconfianza, tener un mal comportamiento y un mal carácter se podría decir que es una emoción negativa. Ya. Tenemos también que tener confianza en las personas adultas que nosotros creemos que ellos nos van a ayudar a comprender las ideas que nosotros tenemos por dentro y que no podemos sacarlas con cualquier persona. Puede ser con personas adultas, papás, mamás, profesores, psicólogos, y en las escuelas debería haber un poco más de comprensión. Esos son los puntos que yo he sacado. Bueno, en resumen de los puntos que yo he sacado. Muchas gracias.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Clarissa, for that expert moderation. It's really been such an insightful and meaningful first session. I mean, all conferences run over time, and we're doing very well in that department. So I will be handing straight over to our next session, which is going to be moderated by our colleague in Brazil, Pedro. So Pedro, please take the floor.
Bom dia, boa tarde a todos. Meu nome é Pedro, tenho 17 anos, sou daqui do Brasil e sou da Escola Estadual Santos Dumont, daqui de Alagoas. É um prazer estar aqui juntamente com vocês nesse momento maravilhoso e único de efetivação dos direitos de crianças, adolescentes e jovens. Antes de passar a fala para quem quiser contribuir, dos adolescentes, eu só quero trazer, né, aqui a todos as coisas que foram abordadas como subtemas nesse eixo temático, que foi abandono / banalização de crianças e adolescentes nas escolas e lares, especialmente durante o Covid-19. O trabalho infantil e riscos generalizados, especialmente nas áreas rurais, crimes cibernéticos, aumento de casos de abuso sexual durante o Covid-19, casamento prematuros e degradação ambiental. Então, só vou falar só um pouquinho antes de passar. É muito importante esse tema. Eu sempre, nas reuniões passadas, sempre discutia esse tema, para a Reina, para Santiago aqui, que sabe que eu sempre batia nessa tecla, porque na Covid foi algo que subiu muito, né? Os índices de abuso e de violência subiram muito entre crianças e adolescentes. E, para quem não sabe, eu sou vítima, né, de abuso sexual, fui vítima com 9 anos, então é muito importante a gente abordar esses assuntos. Até porque quando a gente fala sobre saúde mental, a gente sabe que muitos desses casos de doenças mentais e etc. estão ligados à violência sexual ou os tipos de violência contra crianças, adolescentes e jovens. Então, já quero dizer que a Maria não pôde estar presente por questões particulares da escola, mas ela mandou um abraço a todos vocês, e logo mais ela também vai estar aqui pela tarde ou amanhã. Então, agora eu abro um momento para os adolescentes e jovens que quiserem falar. Eu peço que falem pausadamente, bem devagar, para que o tradutor, para que facilite a vida do tradutor. E também fala o seu nome, sua idade, sua escola e país. E é isso. Quem quiser falar, só levantar a mão. Christopher está com a fala.
Buenas tardes, buenos días, buenas noches en la parte de la ciudad, del país que estén. Mi nombre es Christopher Narváez, como dije anteriormente, tengo 11 años, estudio en la Escuela de Educación General Básica, segundo Miguel Salazar, en la parte de la estación, y estoy aquí representando al Cantón Mejía y al Ecuador. Yo creo que en esto de la salud, y vuelvo a Yacato, es muy importante porque ya que nadie saca los recursos necesarios, ya que por eso di la opinión de que el gobierno debería abrir espacios de diálogo completamente gratuitos para todas las gente de la comunidad. Esa por mi opinión.
Eu vi que a Carissa estava com a mão levantada. Carissa, pode falar.
Ya, yo quería, antes de comenzar con el otro diálogo que vamos a tener, quería agradecerles a ustedes, al Global Campus, al Coprodem, por siempre estar apoyándome, a mis padres, a Dios por darme esta oportunidad. Yo quería agradecerles y espero que esta no sea la última vez que nos podamos ver, aunque sea por una pantalla, pero sí quiero agradecerles demasiado. Me van a sacar mis lágrimas porque mi corazón está acelerado y es una emoción muy fuerte que yo tengo aquí adentro, porque yo nunca pensé llegar tan lejos.
You're great, Clarissa.
Por mi parte, ella también.
A Regina também está com a fala.
Te queremos, Clarissa.
Yo también por mi parte agradezco al Campus Global, a Coprodem, que me ha estado apoyando bastante en esto de las participaciones. Un fuerte abrazo virtual y muchísimas gracias por todo el apoyo que me han dado.
A Regina está com a fala.
Yeah, hello everyone. Once again, namaste. It's me, Regina from Nepal. And first of all, before going to the topic, I love you, Clarissa. Yeah, I could understand how the emotion that's come, like the global.
Regina, sorry, could you speak closer to the microphone? You're very, very soft.
Am I audible properly? No, is that okay?
Regina, is your setup different than before? Are you speaking further away from the microphone? Because we don't hear clearly.
Not exactly, but just give me a second. I think I have to rejoin. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. So in the meantime, Pedro, I would move on to the next speaker and we go back to Regina after.
Tem uma pessoa do Nepal com a mão levantada.
Thank you so much. Am I audible? Okay, my name is Akanksha Karmacharya, representing Nepal. So right now, when we are talking about children mental health, and one of our friend has also included teenagers mental health. Being a teenager, I can really relate with that topic. First of all, one of the main reasons why we are in such situation, we can say that one of the main reasons can be the era of competition. I think being a teenager, I can feel insecure about the thing, like I am lacking behind from someone else, or someone is better than me, and that is also creating some kind of mental health issues, that I want to prove my existence, I want to prove myself, and make sure that there is some contribution of mine in this society. Similarly, talking about violence against children relating mental health, in our Nepal, we can literally see lots of children are underprivileged. Most of them are working in some factories or some house or someone else's house, though they are children. That is also a kind of violence, and they're not just getting mentally harassed, but also physically harassed. And at this particular time, we literally can't think about they are getting proper kind of education or schooling. They just want to be a human at very first. So I think that's the reason there are so many issues related to mental health. Thank you.
Por enquanto que Regina não volta, eu quero fazer uma contribuição bem rápida. Como falei nas reuniões passadas, eu acho que a internet ou o telefone ou as redes sociais só contribuem para o nosso para se refugiar, né, do mundo social, etc. E principalmente quando a gente é vítima de violência. Outra coisa também que tem que ser levado em consideração é que hoje em dia existem diversos tipos de violência, não somente no meio digital, certo? Eu sei que existem violências no meio digital, como cancelamento e etc. Porém, existem tipos de violência físicas que, infelizmente, levam à morte. E quando a gente fala de prevenção às violências, a gente está citando todo o contexto de violência. Então, esse momento aqui é basicamente para poder a gente refletir. Esse eixo é para a gente refletir. Porque a pergunta que eu faço para os especialistas, organizadores desse evento, os adolescentes, é o que a gente está fazendo para poder prevenir os tipos de violência? Ou será que a gente está contribuindo, cancelando o nosso amigo, fazendo bullying, ou se não mangando de características físicas dele? Então, além desse tema, além da reflexão, é importante a gente ter em mente que os tipos de violência podem surgir de qualquer lugar, não somente da escola, não no telefone, não na rua, mas pode surgir dentro de casa, na rua, na escola, na sociedade, na casa do tio, na casa da mãe, e assim vai. Então, que esse momento seja mais para a gente refletir, fazer sugestões, para poder a gente debater também, para poder levantar propostas, porque como o Reina falou numa reunião antiga, esse momento é para poder a gente colher propostas com um plano internacional. Então, quem quiser falar novamente, o momento está aberto. Regina, tá com a fala.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. So now I hope now I'm audible. So sorry, I have some trouble in microphone. Well, I was saying that we love you, Clarissa. Like I can totally understand your emotion. The way Global Campus has created a platform where we have joined together from different corner of the world, like right now here. So I'll also like to thank to the Global Campus for creating this platform, as well as for the Kathmandu Law Campus as well. And well, in the topic of like violence against the children, I totally agree with the Akansa what she said that yeah, there are still the cases where children are working in the factories and suffering from various child abuse. But in the same way, I would like to say that there are yeah, obviously the government has certain plan and policies, and in our municipality, like where I live, we have announced our municipality a child-friendly local government. So here are quite very good policies and all those things. But the thing is, we are lacking somewhere on the implementation. Like on the later on days, because of the COVID also, like the various issues of mental health has created and because of COVID and lockdown situation, like most of the cases of domestic violence and like sexual harassment within their own home by their own relatives were arise as a so terrific situation. So that's the problem, which is not only affecting us physically, but also just betraying us mentally. And I have a question to all among all of us, like, is we can have proof of physical violence, like if somebody harassed us, or if somebody harassed physically us in any place, like we can have proof for complaining against it. But in the case of mental violence, like if somebody scold us or if somebody bullied us like that, and how could we show the proof that we are mentally harmed by them? Like how could we make the plan and policies, laws for the mental health issues? Like we have addressed these issues, yeah, because we have lots of stereotype and stigma that these are not the topic to discuss openly. Like you should be strong within yourself. How could you discuss your problem with others? Like that kind of stereotype and stigma we have. But I want to ask all of you, like as we have Anna, like from stakeholder or from related to the law, something like that. So I want to ask to everyone, like how what we could do and how could we make this to remove the problems and violence against the children, which is related not only physically but also mentally. Thank you. That's it.
A Mônica não, peraí. Najat, tá com a fala.
Thank you, Pedro, Clarissa, Christopher, Akancha, Pedro, again, and Regina. I just want to let you know, as my title prove it, I am the special representative on violence against children. So I can let you know that children is increasing worldwide and less visible. This is a pity, despite the fact that we have many countries worldwide who made commitments really to end all forms of violence against children by 2030. And as you highlight, Pedro, you have various forms of violence, mental, sexual, physical, violence in all settings, in home, in the circle of trust. And when we are speaking about the circle of trust, it could be happening at home, but also in school. It could be happen in church. It could be happen in sport. It could happen on streets. You have the big problem also of the various forms, like child labor, early marriage, female mutilation, corporal punishment, trafficking, enrollment in gang and in violent extremist group. You have also all these children who are deprived of liberty and put in institution. You have children who are protesting peacefully, arrested and beaten by police and put in jail. You have also all the forms of violence online. But in the same time, as you highlight, you have also the online aspect it's also empowering and could be helpful. So you have the big challenge we have is how we can make all this continuum of, violence, discrimination, exclusion, changing in a continuum of care and protection for and with children. And this is a big challenge. And this is a big part of my mandate, not only speaking blah, blah, blah with states, but also during country visits. And I can provide you with an example. I just came back from Niger, Chad, Lebanon, and Jordan. And, I met and I discussed a lot during all my work, here and at local level with children who were affected. And when you see, the impact of all these forms of violence on their mental health, when you see children, that they have self-mutilation, that they lack of hope, that they are despair, when you see the high rate of suicide, this is huge. The cause is, it's a human and economic huge cost. So what I am doing is pushing, states to invest in it, not only on human resources, on having a hotline, but also to invest in all this chain of services. And it's also to respond to Regina. It's also regarding, the expertise, because the mental health, and the psychological violence, direct corporal punishment, humiliating punishment, peer-to-peer violence. Not forget, please, that you have also peer-to-peer violence through bullying, through cyberbullying, has a big impact. So how we can make sure that, you have these mechanisms that are really compliant, with all the standards, protecting, providing privacy, safety for children who are victims of violence, but also how we can prove the impact on mental health, but also the psychological violence. It means also having psychological experts. This is very important. And at the same time, what is important, Pedro, and I want to highlight it, is really to make sure that we are fighting impunity and making perpetrators also accountable. This is very, 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 very important. And in the same time, you were telling that we need really to invest. And I just want to highlight the points regarding investment. Currently, what we are doing, as you know, many countries are doing their national socio-economic plan to recover from the pandemic and beyond. And what we are doing is pushing to make sure that education since the early childhood, safe, inclusive, and protective, empowering education, health and mental health, justice, protection, care, and social protection for the most vulnerable are included and having dedicated budget. And we did a kind of study showing that states, when they are financing these systems, they will win and they will have a high return on investment. Just to let you know, regarding coming back from Chad and Niger, 1 in 7 girls is married under 15 years old, and 1 in 6 have already children. So just to let you know that it's becoming huge and huge. And the last point regarding Clarissa, and it's for you, Clarissa, when you start speaking and you have this emotion, I really, really trust that you are the best experts in the world, and I am not lying. As I am telling you, I am working with children more than 40 years, and what I learned from them, you know the problem and you know the solution. And my big fight also with states is to make sure that you are part of the solution, that you are seen as actors of change, and you are involved, you know, in all the decision-making process, because this is very, very, very important. Over to you.
O Kristen também está com a fala.
Thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you, Clarissa, the moderators, and everyone who's spoken in these sessions. My name is Kristen Hope. I work with Terre des Hommes, which is an international organization that works on supporting children to have their rights fulfilled and supporting child protection in over 35 countries. I want to echo what Dr. Najat was just saying, and emphasize this as a potential for transformation. You as children know something about the world that we as adults do not know. You have insights to the understandings of children's experiences of the world, lived experiences of how they live their rights every day. And this is why as adults, our role is to support you, to support each other. It is to create spaces so that you can express yourselves and you can bear witness to your lived experiences as children. And it's also our roles to channel your views to the decision makers, to governments at national, local level, so that they know, and they need to take you seriously and take your views into consideration when they're making decisions. And this is why it's so critical to have Dr. Najat, to have Anne Skelton, and everyone at all levels who stands by the community of child human rights defenders to enable that space and to channel your views. I was really struck by so many things that I've heard in the past hour, but particularly by Akansha's. I hope I pronounced your name right, Akansha. You said something which really sticks with me, which is that adolescents these days, they're struggling with many things. They just want to be human. I think what you are speaking to in your experiences of struggle in adolescence and this period of transformation, it really speaks to the heart of what it means to be human. Being human is about being vulnerable. It's about our fragility as humans, which actually more than anything, the pandemic has emphasized human fragility, but has also emphasized human resilience. And so in you sharing with us today, through whether it's Clarissa sharing with her in an emotional way, whether it's which I honor and respect and uphold, you are demonstrating to us the ways that we need to be more human in a post-pandemic world. So by you being here today, by being together as a community of child rights activists, you are demonstrating solidarity, you are demonstrating resistance, you are demonstrating how the world needs to transform. And you are sowing the seeds of a community that is based on these values that we need to take forward into the world that we rebuild after the pandemic. And I honor you all and I celebrate you all and I thank you immensely for sharing with us.
Muito obrigado. Agora o especialista Hazley.
Thank you so much. My name is Hazem from Palestine, and I'm speaking here not as an expert, but also as someone who saw so much of what you saw as a child. And I would like to bring the discussion back to the practicalities that were asked. I mean, Christopher, when he spoke, he asked a very practical question, and many more practical questions were asked by the children who I think require practical solutions. So as someone who came from an underdeveloped background with lots of violence, with lots of fear, with lots of stigma, I believe that we cannot continue to be waiting for states to act, because personally, I no longer trust in states or trust in these words that will not produce tangible outcomes. For example, when Christopher needs an advice or something, I'm constantly asking myself, why do we constantly fail to be present? Because nowadays we can be present online. It doesn't have to be very difficult for us to be innovative and to be creative. And therefore, I believe that we should not be shy and that we should be brave enough to say that something new has to be done, something that is in a way more accustomable for the new world. And that we also need to stand out and say, no, that we really deserve something more than this, something more practical and more tactical. Because let's not forget that so many children are suffering right now, and they don't have this thing that they can communicate with, this thing that can give them advice and knowledge. And I think this is the big elephant in the room, and that it needs to stay in the room.
A Januca também está com uma fala.
So, hello everyone, thank you so much. Namaste, I'm Januka from Nepal. I'm a child rights activist, I'm 19 years old, and I'm representing COVID under 19 initiative as a peer mentor today. So the first thing I would like to say is today's session, this conference is really very lively. Children confidently talking about their issues, raising their voice, and adult listening to them, supporting them, is really very intergenerational conversation. And I think this practice should be done in our daily life, in our families, in our home, and in everywhere that is possible. So I really loved the session. Thank you for having me here. And another thing is, though I have joined the conference as an expert today, I would like to speak on the behalf of all the children and teenagers on issues regarding mental health and especially child marriage. So we have Dr. Nazat Mallamjit here today with us, UN Special Representative on the violence against children. So I really would like to mention about an incident that I witnessed myself a year ago. It is regarded to child marriage. So one of my junior knew about one child marriage issue, and she informed me about that issue, and I immediately reported the incident to the police, and police went to the place on the spot, and they stopped the marriage. The girl was 16 years old. Let me not mention her name today. Let me not make it public. So she was 16 years old and she couldn't marry. Maybe she was in depression or something like that. She was in love with a boy who was an adult, and the thing stopped. Everything was fine. Police went, and the following day, she locked herself inside a room, and she was continuously demanding to get married with the one she was in love with. And her parents, instead of counseling her daughter, instead of talking to her, they called the girl, the junior of mine who reported the case of child marriage to me. They called her and started to threaten her, saying that if anything happens to my daughter, then you will be responsible for that. So what I want to raise is there are two problems that we can see here. One is the mentally depressed girl who wanted to marry at the age of 16. When children are sometimes misguided or when they are not mentally well, then they come across something that is not good for them, but they don't try to understand that they can't do such things. And on the other hand, the other problem is that the girl who tried to speak out against the violence, against child marriage, was threatened. That means she was mentally not able to speak after that. Like the parents who threatened her were threatening her not to speak against violence. So there comes the issue of mental health and child marriage, of course. So this is just an example. A few days ago, I saw the news of 13 years old girl's pregnancy, and so many things are there, and so many examples can be taken. So I'm mentioning this thing today here because I just hope international organizations like United Nations can help government be alert in such issues and help in the implementation of policies, rules, and acts effectively and strictly, so that such issues will not be in existence in the future, and so that we can imagine a great world for all the children. So thank you so much for listening to me.
Certo. Eu vou passar a fala para a próxima pessoa, que é do Chile. Peço que seja rápido e objetivo por conta do tempo. Tá com a fala. Você está com o microfone desligado.
Hola. Claro. ¿Ahora sí? Sí, gracias. Pues la verdad, el tema de violencia en este aspecto igual es algo muy complejo, es algo que abarca muchas cosas y vengo escuchando igual prestando atención ahora a lo que han venido conversando todos ustedes y claro, yo lo voy a abordar más por el tema por ejemplo, cuando recibimos violencia, no sé, tipo verbalmente, psicológicamente, mentalmente, que siento que aparte de la violencia que es física, nos perjudica harto en el tema de a nosotros mismos, nosotros mismos, pasarnos a llevar en el tema en que no nos damos cuenta a veces cuando recibimos violencia que está tan actualmente, no sé, idealizada, claro, que podemos decir que capaz es algo normal, pero muy dentro tuyo sabes que de alguna manera estás recibiendo un tipo de violencia que no está tan tomada en cuenta como otras que son más conversadas, más habladas, más dichas y eso.
Hola, me presento, soy Anthony y sumándome a lo que dice mi compañera Sauri, estuvieron hablando acerca de, bueno, lo que yo interpreté fue acerca de que no hay apoyo y bueno, también lo que yo siento, no hay apoyo de algunas organizaciones, ya sea padres, profesores, que no nos brindan la influencia que nosotros deberíamos tener, o sea, no nos guían por el camino ya por diferentes variables. Y claro, como somos adolescentes, todavía no somos, entre comillas, maduros o poco capaces de guiarnos o seguir un camino correcto. Entonces nos dejamos influenciar y somos débiles en aspecto de que no relacionamos lo que está bien para nosotros. Eso. Muchas gracias.
Passo a fala também para a Cristina e peço que ela seja rápida e objetiva.
सम्पूर्णमा नमस्कार, म क्रिस्टिना निरौला नेपाल विराटनगरबाट। अनि मलाई चाहिँ अब यहाँ हजुरहरूले कुरा गर्दै गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ के भन्छ भाइलेन्सको कुरा गरिसु होइन, चाइल्ड अब्युजको कुरा गरिसु, चाइल्ड म्यारेजको कुरा गरिसु। यो गर्दा गर्दै चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ के लाग्यो भन्दाखेरि स्कुलमा हाम्रो टिचर्सहरूले चाहिँ जसरी हामी बिहेभ गरिसकेको छ होइन सानो कुराले पनि जस्तो अब स्टुडेन्टहरूलाई मायाले नै होस् या गरी होस् होइन स्टुडेन्टहरूको चाहिँ नाम राखिदिने तिमी यस्तो उस्तो भनेर नाम राखिदिने त्यसरी बोलाइदिने होइन अब कोही फ्याट होला होइन उसलाई त्यसै गरी ट्रिट गरिदिने यस्तो कुराले पनि त सानो सानो कुराले पनि भाइलेन्स क्रिएट गरिरहेको हुन्छ होइन अनि यस्तो समस्याहरू त हाम्रो मेन्टल हेल्थमा पनि इफेक्ट पारिरहेको हुन्छ अनि यसरी हामीले कसरी यस्तो प्रब्लम आयो भने चाहिँ कसरी कोप गर्न सक्छौँ भन्ने
Certo. Eu passo a fala também para a Najat. E peço que ela seja rápida, por conta do tempo.
Yes, I had to be very to the point because I have another meeting. So I will be very pragmatic and practical, just to conclude some things and reacting to Palestine. I think, yes, we need a new word, very frankly, when children can speak up more and more. This is very important and it is starting worldwide. And I can share with you all the mapping and Kristen also will show you all this mapping of child-led and youth initiative worldwide, and our role is maybe to link these platforms to show, because we need to give more visibility, to amplify their voices, to empower them, to inform them also, and to see this is very, very important, and to build this resilience. We need also to use more and more, to be creative and to use more and more online in a positive way, in a transformative way. And we have already wonderful examples worldwide. So we need, as adults, and we need today, and I committed to do that, really to share with you all these points. Another thing that you were telling that there is no practical response. I agree with you that there is a lack of trust in states, in many actors. But in the same time, we have a huge evidence-based actions that are practical, that are impacting. So we need to avoid stop working on silo approach and to share with you, this is possible. And it shows that we can do it. And my last point is regarding early marriage, when you highlight, I think that we have to be also to take into account, coming from Morocco, that we need also to take into account the social norms related also to all these sexual relationship outside marriage that are really, really, very bad recognized, they are pushing to stigma. So I think here you give us a wonderful example of, yes, you need to report, but in the same time, you need to have a guidance and accompaniment of these girls and their parents. So we need this chain of services. And I will finish by telling, and I am sincere when I'm telling that you are in all my work and all of us here, you are really experts and it's not lying. And I think you need to raise more and more your voice. You need to act more and more. And here what we need is really after that, what I request and I am requesting from you is really when you are going to compile all that, share it with all of us. And I want to let you know that my next report to the Human Rights Council, I have a dedicated meeting only with children and young people because I want to be accountable to them, but in the same time to learn from them and to involve and to channel their decision-making process. I want to tell you many thanks. I am very proud of you. You are wonderful and continue. When I was young, I was a human rights activist and I started at 9 years old. And just to let you know, I was arrested in my country 48 times. So, because I was fighting for children on streets. So you can make it. And I am sure that you can make it and you are really actors of change and positive change. Thank you so much. And really, I enjoy being with you today and see you soon.
Thank you, Najat.
Eu passo a fala para a última pessoa, que é a próxima especialista.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, if that is where you're currently staying. I just wanted to make a quick comment on some of the points we heard. And in our recent consultations with children, particularly working in rural part of Nepal and also in the urban slums, and also working with children who are unfortunately forced to work in the worst form of child labor, and many of them are working in the adult entertainment sector. And our realization is pretty similar to what is being discussed here. But I think, as the previous expert said, one of the key realizations that we came across is that there is no one better than children who can help us decide and create solutions for any projects that we determine. And it's also a commitment on our side that we are trying our level best to always make sure that we listen to children. And I was just citing in one of my chats recently about how working with children and the child clubs make us realize the different evolutions that were happening around child marriage. Earlier, we would imagine that it's out of poverty, it's out of social stigma or social norms or religion or culture for that matter. But we came also to know after discussing with children that it's also out of this immature love that they had. It's kind of a fantasy that someone develops and some associations that happens at that age. And no better way than working with children to address that. And we've already tested it in some areas, and it is proven so effective, like just by mobilizing children. I'm just citing you an example, and I want to leave you with that we worked with the child clubs, and the child clubs played such a vital role, and they created, and it's not us, it's their own funding. They had some also support from the local municipalities. They created a massive campaign on Facebook, and they generated that if they see any child marriage happening in such and so areas, please report it to us and we would be able to provide you some support. And that has helped child marriage in several locations of our project areas. Now, I understand that this is just a simple one, but let's not assume and let's not make any solutions for children if that is specifically new and innovative idea that we want to generate. We should and we must always consult with children and make them part of the solutions. Thank you. And it's been an absolute joy to join this panel. I'm sorry I couldn't join all the sessions, but the ones that I attended have been extremely fruitful for me and for my organization as well. We've taken great notes of it, and we have a number of other colleagues also joining here. So we'll make sure that we listen to you. We build in some of your recommendations for our future programming. Thank you.
Antes de encerrar, eu só quero trazer alguns pontos importantes. Aqui a gente ouviu que é mais do que necessário a prevenção das violências, tanto no ambiente virtual quanto no ambiente presencial. A gente também, no caso, foi falado aqui que os tipos de violência podem surgir de quem menos a gente espera e de todos os lados. Então, é importante que os países envolvidos aqui, nesta conferência, desenvolvam ações de prevenção aos tipos de violência contra crianças e adolescentes e jovens, para garantir um futuro de saúde, de dignidade, de educação, de lazer e de acesso a todos os direitos universais. Agradeço também ao Santiago, facilitador da minha região. Agradeço também à Reina por todo o apoio e suporte. E todos os envolvidos aqui de crianças e adolescentes, porque é muito importante a nossa voz ser ouvida. E também agradeço a todos os organizadores do Campus Global. É isso, Reina. Muito obrigado. Abraços do Brasil.
Thank you so much, Pedro, for that. Hugs right back at you. I really realize, and I do apologize again, that we're terribly over time, but I think that these topics that we're discussing is probably more important than a timeline. So with that in mind as well, I'm going to give straight over to our next moderator, who is Lum from South Africa. And the topic will be unhealthy competition, which is one of the the things that really came up in the discussion as well that isn't talked about as much in the public domain. So please, Lum, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Lum Fuatanga and I'm 17. I live here in South Africa and I work to St. Mary's DSG. It's a pleasure to be a part of this forum today to discuss the various issues that affect children's mental health. As you heard from Mrs. Rina, this next session is going to be on unhealthy competition between children and teenagers. In our regional consultations, we discuss a lot about how unhealthy competition in school, such as comparisons between different children and the amount of pressure that we can put on ourselves negatively affects our mental health. I'd like to open the floor to my colleagues and other children in other parts of the world to discuss their thoughts on this.
Just a quick point, Lum, if you can sit a little bit closer to the microphone because your voice is a little bit soft, yeah. But we can still hear you, but it's just soft.
Sorry, I'll speak louder.
That's perfect, yeah. Over to the rest of the children. I didn't want
maybe not everyone heard me. Just to reiterate, we talked a lot about unhealthy competition in our regional consultations and how in a school environment, the pressure that we put on ourselves to succeed and to do well can negatively impact our mental health. Again, I just want to open the floor to other children to discuss this topic. Thank you.
So I'll be speaking next, but it's kind of awkward to put hands up when you're sitting next to the person. So I think my personal take on healthy competition, especially when it comes to things like school, I think it's very difficult to find a healthy balance of what is a good amount of pressure to make sure that you keep working and you achieve what you want to, and point of pressure where it's too much, which could result in burnout at a young age, for example, and having a low self-esteem and low confidence purely from basing your self-worth off of how you do in school and how you participate in your community and how you would place yourself in that community per se. So I think it's really important to find the healthy balance between participating and achieving and striving to do well, and a point where it can lead to some less liked things like burnout and having mental breakdowns and basing your self-worth off of how well you do in school.
Thank you so much, Shelby, for that point. I think just to add on to Shelby's point, before I do actually, can our colleagues from Chile continue? Thank you. Your mic is
Hola,
muted.
buenas de nuevo. Mi nombre es Saori Rivera y pues quiero dar una pequeña opinión. Siento que pues en este tema la verdad opino que pues siempre en el lugar en el que estemos, a edad que estemos, ustedes, nosotras como adolescentes, siempre van a haber comparaciones con cualquier persona que a uno lo hacen sentir mal. O sea, ejemplo es cuando, no sé, te comparan con tu hermana mayor para que seas o te acomplejan a que seas igual o mejor que ella, como en temas, no sé, mira a tu hermana, sacó mejores notas que tú, ¿por qué no puedes llegar a ese nivel? O en temas laborales también, ustedes como adultos, igual yo creo que se da en cualquier espacio en el que uno esté, siempre hay comparaciones, tipos de comparaciones, que a uno le estresan o lo hacen sentir mal en el aspecto de que te agobia, o sea, uno sabe que está dando lo mejor y obvio no puedes dar lo mismo que otra persona capaz, pero estás dando lo mejor de ti y es feo cuando te dicen que des más de lo que ya estás dando. Y es estresante, o sea, es estresante ver que estás pasando por esa situación y no puedes decir nada porque es algo, igual es algo tan idealizado que es tan así como normal la comparación y el tipo de competencia no sana, pero que es sana, entre comillas, en colegios, espacios familiares, laborales, etcétera, que uno los ve y se siente mal, pero es normal. Entonces, y eso, algo que decir. Gracias.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Christina.
Once again, hello everyone. I would just love sharing a little thing about this unhealthy competition. Like whenever we have relatives coming to our house, and then our parents will be like my daughter or my son does not do anything. He just sleeps. He's so lazy or something like that. They will be explaining to them. Yeah, that is also kind of comparison that they make between their children and other children. But our parents need to realize that an apple and orange can never be compared. We all are different. We all have different qualities. We all have different thinkings, and we all have different aims at our lives. So I just think that this should be enhanced, because like whenever they make a kind of competition, we'll be like lacking of hope there. We will not have much we'll not get support from the family. We don't have anything to do with ourselves. So I think our parents must understand the thinking and concept that a teenager especially, they feel they don't have anyone where they can express. So I guess parents should be more supportive, and they need to understand that we all are different, like the taste of an apple and an orange. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina, for your contribution. Clarissa.
Ya, no sé si me escuchan. Ya, muchas gracias. De mi parte, la competencia no sana es cuando las personas son competitivas de manera patológica y tienen miedo a perder, y también para mí es cuando tenemos en nuestra mente que siempre vamos a ganar y creemos que somos mejores que los demás.
Thank you, Clarissa. Mohashadi.
Oh, hello. I'm Morashadi. Just a quick introduction. I'm from the same school as Shelby and Loam. And I think a lot of the competition between us as teenagers comes from the lack of validation that a lot of us get, especially from like neglectful households or households where achieving great marks or achieving great things is the only way to exit the situation that the family is in. I feel especially with academics, a lot of teenagers put a lot of pressure on themselves to do like exceedingly well, to the point where most of their achievements that they've already achieved are not enough because somebody else has achieved better. And I think it's up to, the adults that have, that are in places where their validation means the most, like parents and teachers. It's up to them to be more mindful of the fact that, stuff like academic achievements is not the only reason to give a child validation. Like, children should be validated for everything, not everything that they do, but like just waking up and, you know, getting through the day and just, I don't know, acknowledging children more than their brains and more than their smarts, because not everybody is academically inclined. Not everybody is, you know, inclined in sports. And it's up to like our teachers, our adults to be aware of this and actually pay more attention to what the other things that children can do, and acknowledge other gifts that children might have. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Khoshali. I think with the point that you made is an exceedingly valid point. I think, sorry, I'm just reading the chat. I think just for example, in my personal life, I've tried more and more not to seek external validation, because you can find that as a child, when you don't receive it, you feel quite down. And I think this is also as a result of the language that growing up you hear as a child, like, for example, I'm so proud of you. And then you look for that kind of affirmation as you continue to get older, as opposed to someone saying to a child or a teenager, you must be so proud of yourself, and giving them the gateway to give themselves that validation and like reassure themselves that, yes, I have done a good job and I am proud of myself and the work that I've put in to realize this like goal of mine and everything. Would any other child like to contribute, child or teenager like to contribute to the discussion at this point in time? Okay, then I'm going to open the floor to experts and adults. If children would like to contribute, they're still more than welcome to. Yes, Mr. Hazim.
Thank you so much. As we all agree, this is an important topic, and I would like to make a distinction here between two types of economies that we may be living under. Some economies are efficiency-based economies that they try to get us to get, for example, the best grades, the best outcomes that are standardized. But the world is luckily moving forward towards the more creative domain. And when you are moving in a creative domain, you cannot measure efficiency like that. So we can make the comparison here between Japan, for example, and Finland. And there we can see that, for example, in Japan, we have so much high suicide rates, and they suffer so much at high school. Whereas in a country like Finland, which is a great example for how education and social and emotional education can be done, we can see that children are having such a better time, and that they are progressing in so many different ways. You know, they don't even have exams there. And so I would like to share my optimism that in a way, we can be more creative. We can find new ways to differentiate and distinguish ourselves without falling prey to the competition. Because I can tell you as an adult that this goes on and it will go on. So the only way to overcome it is just to find new ways to shine, you could say.
Thank you so much for your contribution, sir. Ms. Joanna, I open the floor to you.
Muito obrigada, Lam, e muito obrigada a todos vocês. Eu falo em nome do... Ops, eu mutei meu microfone, peço desculpas. Então, começando de novo, bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite. Meu nome é Joana, eu falo em nome do UNICEF, que é o Fundo das Nações Unidas para a Infância no Brasil. É um prazer enorme estar aqui com vocês e ter escutado e ter ouvido tantas colocações relevantes e importantes no mundo da discussão, né, de direitos de crianças e adolescentes, principalmente no tema da saúde mental, que é a agenda muito prioritária atualmente, mas que vem já sendo estou com problemas tecnológicos de microfone, mas eu acho que agora todos estão me escutando, certo?
All is going well. We can hear you well. We can hear you well.
Thank you very much. Obrigada. Então, peço licença para vocês, eu vou falar em português, como eu estou falando do Brasil, mas eu quero dizer que eu ouvi todas as contribuições. Eu acho que é uma forma da gente fazer essa costura, né? Essa costura que vocês trazem de diferentes contextos, diferentes países, em que a gente pode ver as semelhanças, por um lado, né, dos impactos da saúde mental, mas eu acho que tem diferenças, e aí eu coloco nesse tema, principalmente da competição não saudável, em que países que têm dificuldades financeiras ou vulnerabilidades econômicas, como isso se representa ou se apresenta nas competições, né? Ou desde cedo, a criança ou o adolescente sofre muitas pressões, por exemplo, para entrar no mercado de trabalho, para trabalhar, para ser alguém na vida, como aqui nós dizemos, né? E isso significa que reflete para o nosso comportamento, como o Lam muito bem disse, muito bem sugeriu, né? Não vamos buscar aprovação fora ou no outro, só que a pressão está no dia a dia, tá? Em como a gente se coloca, se supera, como vivencia, e eu costumo dizer muito, eu gosto muito de dizer que são as adolescências, no plural, com S, ou as juventudes, né? Porque a gente tem que considerar as desigualdades no país, né? O Brasil, por exemplo, é um país continental, então tem muitas dificuldades, muitas diferenças entre criações e oportunidades. Então, eu queria trazer um pouco também essa reflexão. A gente está dizendo de competição não saudável, mas, ao mesmo tempo, a gente vive em ambientes muito vulneráveis e de muitas desigualdades, em que, se você não também oferece, desde sempre, as oportunidades para que as habilidades sejam desenvolvidas, ou as características de cada adolescente, ou as individualidades também sejam, tenham espaço, né? E tem um espaço para o desenvolvimento, e esse crescimento, e essa busca dos sonhos, e de onde querem cada um de vocês quer e pode atuar, tendo o direito de ser adolescente, que eu acho que isso é um grande ponto que a gente colocou. As violências vivenciadas que a gente conversou no painel anterior, a educação no primeiro painel, é tudo conectado. Então, a questão desde sempre, se você oferece uma boa educação, e aí já tendo a educação em saúde mental contemplada na formação desde pequeno, a possibilidade daquele ou daquela adolescente acessar os direitos e acessar serviços de melhor qualidade aumenta. Então, acho que esse é um grande ponto para a gente refletir. Então, como é que a gente faz e atender os mais vulneráveis? Então, aqui no Brasil, a gente tem feito muito esse trabalho, né, de identificação de contextos mais vulneráveis para diminuir o gap e diminuir as desigualdades. E aí, como que a gente tem feito isso? Então, eu queria trazer aqui também para vocês um pouco de contribuição, que no ano passado, em 2021, a primeira vez que mental health, que saúde mental foi o tema do estudo de situação mundial da infância, foi mental health, né? A primeira vez, do SOC, que é um estudo muito importante do Unicef, que eu gostaria também de compartilhar aqui com vocês um pouco das recomendações. Eu acho que as recomendações vão muito nesse sentido de apoiar essa discussão. Então, diante desse cenário todo, quais seriam as recomendações, então, para a gente poder... São 5 recomendações. Então, recomendação número 1, investimento urgente na saúde mental, já foi dito aqui também anteriormente, mas numa abordagem que envolve saúde, envolve assistência social, envolve educação, para essa promoção da saúde mental. Então, muito mais do que atingir lá no final, né, no número ou nos indicadores de mortes por suicídio. Então, vamos trabalhar na promoção da saúde mental. Então, esse é o primeiro ponto. O segundo é investimento em serviços públicos de qualidade. De novo, também foi dito, mas eu queria reforçar, né, o atendimento psicossocial nas escolas, no ambiente de saúde e no ambiente de assistência social. O terceiro ponto é como que a gente lida com pais, familiares, cuidadores e educadores, para abordar esse tema de forma integral. O quarto é campanhas, advocacy, em torno do tema da saúde mental, fomentando a cultura de escuta, e de escuta empática. O que é empatia? É a gente saber que têm diferentes realidades, e a gente abordá-las com melhor compreensão, tomando em conta a voz e as experiências de crianças e adolescentes. E o último é a valorização dessa rede de apoio entre pares, que é a promoção e valorização desse diálogo, com os próprios adolescentes envolvidos. E aí, aqui, eu queria só compartilhar com vocês algumas das iniciativas que a gente realizou aqui no Brasil, que eu acho que podem ser interessantes para vocês conhecerem. É um canal online de acesso, de apoio a adolescentes e jovens, que chama Pode Falar. É gratuito, online, oferecido como uma escuta, uma forma de você ter alguém com quem falar. Então, Christopher, lá no início, disse que o irmão dele não tinha com quem falar. Vocês trouxeram também questões de privacidade, às vezes vocês não querem falar com a família, e vocês terem a capacidade, a possibilidade de estar com especialistas escutando vocês, dando, às vezes, dicas ou fazendo os encaminhamentos necessários para serviços públicos de saúde mental. O Pode Falar é uma grande experiência que a gente já atendeu a mais de 30 mil adolescentes aqui no Brasil, então poderia ser interessante também como um a mais, né? Um apoio psicossocial online. Por chat, porque aí também evita que você tenha que falar na sua casa, lembrando sempre da privacidade e garantindo a segurança das crianças e adolescentes que usam. Outra ferramenta que a gente criou é o Topit, que é um chatbot, que é um robô também, para autoestima, para entender e para falar sobre autoestima, como é que a gente constrói aí. E aí eu queria colocar tudo que vocês já trouxeram, né? Como é importante a gente pensar nas redes sociais, ou no ambiente virtual, que é tão usado por vocês e pela geração de adolescentes, para o bem. Então, como é que a gente pode fazer com que esse espaço seja um espaço de construção de ambientes mais positivos, combatendo os discursos de ódio na internet, que acho que isso também é muito importante, o cyberbullying, essa relação aí de competição também no mundo virtual, porque as redes sociais mostram muito a perfeição da vida, né? As fotos maravilhosas, ou a vida linda que todo mundo tem, e aí você vê na sua mesma e fala, bom, mas será que a minha não é tão boa assim? Então, acho que essa competição que vocês trazem, evidenciada pelas redes sociais, é o que a gente vem tentando construir essa rede, e aí rede com vários atores diferentes, né? Governos, empresas que estão por trás dessas redes, então tem que ser o setor privado também tem que ser envolvido nessa discussão, o setor público, como também foi dito muito, mas principalmente adolescentes e jovens que vivenciam esses desafios. Então, aqui a gente tem tentado muito esse fortalecimento dessas redes, e que eu acho que é o que a gente fez hoje, né? Discutindo e ouvindo, e o trabalho magnífico que vocês realizaram de construção dessa conferência. Então, eu tenho o maior prazer de estar aqui discutindo com vocês. Queria também apresentar para vocês que a gente tem no Unicef o You Report, que é uma ferramenta de escuta, de consulta, e que nós fizemos muitas consultas no tema da saúde mental, que também são dados disponíveis para que vocês possam construir aí o documento de vocês, que amanhã estaremos aqui para ouvir também. Então, é só dizer e reforçar um pouco, gente, que espaços de criação e construção das individualidades, né, de cada adolescente, cada jovem. Então, é colocar aqui também o Unicef nessa conversa, nessa escuta, para que pensemos juntos caminhos e soluções, né, lideradas por adolescentes e jovens. Então, agradeço muito e vou ficar aqui também, volto para a minha escuta e contribuições, e contem com a gente.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pontura. I'd like to have Clarissa and Ms. Hope as our last two speakers. So go ahead, Clarissa. And please be brief. Thank you.
Sí, muchas gracias. ¿Me escuchan? Sí, ya. A ver. Los niños, la mayoría de veces cuando no ganan, se enfadan, gritan y tratan de inventar excusas, incluso empieza la enemistad, empieza el comportamiento negativo y es algo que los adultos debemos enseñar a los niños a evitar. La mayoría de veces se da en las escuelas y para evitar esto debemos evitar las desigualdades hacia los niños. Gracias.
Thank you, Clarissa. Ms. Ho?
Muy buenas tardes. Yo creo que esto es muy importante, ya que a veces, en varios casos, la salud no es que se respete todos los días. En la escuela a veces un niño, de ejemplo, está sentado ahí en las columpios triste y nosotros le preguntamos qué pasa. Debe estar pasando algo en su casa, porque ahí se da la salud mental. Ahí se da cuando se afecta a la salud mental. Y yo creo que eso es lo importante y deberíamos estar más atentos en nuestras instituciones.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Ma'am, you may go ahead. Thank you.
Is that me? Okay, thanks. So I will try to be brief because of time, but I will really want to honor the question that was asked in the chat by Tinswalo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you for raising that here. Obviously here it's difficult, right? Because it's not a forum where we can provide individualized, support of a therapeutic nature. And I'm not a therapist, but I've worked with children in distress for a number of years, in mainly context of research and advocacy. I also have, personal histories of experiences of adversity, let's put it like that. And what I think is really critical to share with you today, Tinswalo, is that you are, by raising this question, you're doing your friend an incredible service, but it's not all on you. You as an individual, as a friend, cannot bear the responsibility for this by yourself. You shouldn't have to. You are also a teenager, and so it's critical that there's an adult to be able to support your friend. There's a lot of research that has been done by children who experience violence, about children who experience violence and adversity, and the impact of one significant adult. One significant adult can be incredibly transformative for a child. And it's about finding that adult and finding that support and finding that care. Now, if your friend is reluctant to be reaching out, I would encourage, you can be sharing information about avenues of support. So I've just Googled, so you said you're based in South Africa. There are hotlines in South Africa that deal with suicide prevention, hotlines. I think that I'm going to post some things here. So that's based in South Africa, but there are other resources, international resources. There's, I think, the more information, the more signposting to good quality resources you can do for your friend, the better, the more, and at one point, hopefully your friend will feel able to access some of these. The advantage of a hotline is that it can be done anonymously. I myself have used anonymous hotlines in the past and found them to be so helpful in a moment of crisis. So some of those hotlines you can use, and these other things are apps or websites which can direct you to quality resources, and I'm putting them here in the chat. And the last resource I put is also one that was developed recently by UNICEF, Save the Children, and WHO, for how children can support their peers in psychological first aid. So the overall message that I'm trying to send to you, Tinswalo, is that you are doing so much to support your friend already. Your friend is very lucky to have you as a friend. It's important for you to be able to also get support that you need to be able to support your friend. And I honor your work. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your contribution. Just a brief summary of what we've discussed over the past 25 minutes. we have an idea, or we need to talk more about how we can create systems which prevent burnout, how we can create mechanisms that combat unhealthy competition, as it's not only something that children and teenagers are afflicted with, but it's something that continues into adulthood. And we need to also discuss more on how different economy types contribute to the pressure we feel to succeed as individuals. We need to try implement a culture of empathy and support to combat unhealthy competitions, and how we can make use of different online programs to serve as emotional outlets for teenagers and children. Thank you so much all for participating today. Thank you so much for having us from South Africa. I'd like to hand over back to Ms. Reina before our health break. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lum, for that and for a very rich discussion, expertly moderated as well. I think we all deserve a quick 10-minute break. We've only got one session left where we'll be summarizing some of the key aspects in order to get our minds straight for tomorrow. And then we've broke the camel's back for the today. So if we can take a quick break, come back in 10 minutes, then we can wrap up for the day. So see you in exactly 10 minutes. Hello, welcome back everyone after our very quick break. I want to just kick off the session quickly by asking one of our experts, Sudarshan, perhaps just to introduce some audio that they've kindly sent us of 2 young people who do not regularly get the chance to voice their opinion, and because they're not as lucky as us to have strong internet connections, but they did send some audio with their experiences. And perhaps if you would be willing to just quickly introduce that before we go into the highlight session, that would be great. And if you are indeed here. Yeah.
You mean Kristen, right?
In person, yeah. It was a second ago, but this is pretty much serves as a decent introduction as well. It's just the kids who made these testimonies sent it over us to via our colleagues from Terre des Hommes. They aren't as lucky as many of the kids here to be connected and able to contribute online. So I would like to ask Monica to please play the first recording. It's all in Nepalese. I will also share my screen in order to, so you can read the translation of these texts as well.
Hearing the audio now.
Right. The audio didn't play.
Let me try it out once more.
Please do. I think it was because I also shared my screen.
अनि धेरै डिप्रेस थिए अनि राति त्यो डिप्रेसनले गर्दा निन्द्राहरू पनि नलाग्ने अनि
That's playing now, but it stopped. Shall I play it again, Monica?
कसरी गर्ने थाहा पायो अनि
Are you still not
सेल्फ
able
अवेयर
to
हुन
hear?
थाले अनि
It keeps disappearing.
Yeah, I think you would need to play it on your end then.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So the translation is also in the chat for the first video, or for the first audio.
काउन्सिलिङ बस्नुभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ म अलि धेरै डिप्रेस थिएँ अनि राति त्यो डिप्रेसनले गर्दा निन्द्राहरू पनि नलाग्ने अनि आफूमा फोकस गर्न नसक्ने अनि पढाइ पनि राम्ररी मैले पढ्न नै सक्दिनँ थिएँ राम्ररी काउन्सिलिङ पछि चाहिँ मैले अहिले आफूमा अलिक फोकस गर्न पाएँ अनि डिप्रेसनबाट कसरी बाहिर जाने थाहा पाएँ अनि आफूमा मात्र नभएर पढाइहरूमा नि फोकस गर्न थाहा पाएँ अनि आफ्नो प्रब्लमहरू थाहा पाएँ अनि प्रब्लमहरूलाई कोप कसरी गर्ने थाहा पाएँ अनि सेल्फ अवेयर हुन थालेँ अनि सेल्फ कन्फिडेन्ट बढ्यो आफूमा अनि आफूलाई जस्तो छु त्यस्तोमै माया गर्न थालेँ मेन्टल हेल्थ आफ्नो साथीहरूको लागि मेन्टल हेल्थ इम्प्रुभ गर्नको लागि चाहिँ के सल्लाह दिन्छु भने राम्रो काउन्सिलरबाट जाने अनि आफ्नो सेल्फ कन्फिडेन्टहरू बढाउने भन्दा नि सुरुमा काउन्सिलर राम्रो ठाउँमा जाने अनि राम्रो काउन्सिलिङ पाएर आफूलाई जस्तो छ त्यसरी एक्सेप्ट गर्ने.
So that is the one contribution, and I'll share the translation for the next one again in the chat before I start playing it.
नमस्ते, मेरो नाम शान्तिमय तामाङ हो र म 19 वर्षकी भएँ। विगत पहिलो लकडाउनमा चाहिँ मलाई एकदमै गाह्रो भएको थियो। घरभित्रले कोठा भाडा नतिरेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि निस्केर जाऊ भनेर मानसिक तनाव पनि दिइरहेको थियो र विश्वास नेपालमा म अहिले चिन्तन गरिसकेपछि विश्वास नेपालले चाहिँ मलाई लकडाउनमा राहतहरू उपलब्ध गराइदिनु भयो र पहिलो लकडाउनमै मलाई चाहिँ कोभिड भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि औषधि उपचार र कपडाहरू पनि दिनुभएको थियो। त्यति बेला विश्वास नेपालले धेरै सहयोग गर्नुभएको थियो। कोभिड भए पश्चात चाहिँ मेरो परिवारले मलाई पहिलो जस्तो नजरले नहेर्ने एकदमै घृणित तरिकाले हेर्ने भएको कारणले गर्दा म एकदम मानसिक तनावमा अनि विभिन्न नराम्रो सोचहरू आउन थालिरहेको थियो र विश्वास नेपालमा कोभिडको आइसोलेसन सकेपछि विश्वास नेपालमा रेगुलर आउन थालेर चाहिँ मैले काउन्सिलिङ सेसनहरू लिएँ र यहाँबाट मलाई एकदमै धेरै राहतहरू प्राप्त भयो र मैले सुसाइड एक्टहरू पनि धेरै गर्न खोजेको थिएँ र अहिले चाहिँ म त्यो गर्दिनँ किनभने मैले बुझिसकेको छु कि मैले आफैलाई माया गर्नुपर्छ भनेर। मलाई विश्वास नेपालको काउन्सिलिङ सेसनले एकदमै धेरै सहायता गरेको छ। मैले चाहिँ यस संस्थामा आबद्ध भइसकेपछि चाहिँ आत्मविश्वासमा पनि मैले आत्मविश्वास पनि बढेको छ र मैले यहाँबाट व्यवसायिक सहयोग पनि पाएको छु र मैले यसमा व्यवसायिक सहयोग पाएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि अब म के गर्न सक्छु भन्ने थाहा छ र मैले शारीरिक मात्र होइन कि मलाई मानसिक तनाव पनि हुन्छ र यसमा हामीलाई काउन्सिलिङ सेसन चाहिन्छ भन्ने बुझेको छु र मैले अरू साथीहरूलाई पनि यसबारे बताएको छु र हामीलाई काउन्सिलिङ सेसनहरू चाहिन्छ, हामीलाई तनाव भएको बेलामा कतै पुग्नुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा मैले थाहा पाएको छु र म कन्टिन्यू काउन्सिलिङहरू लिइरहेको छु र आफ्नो तनावहरू र आफ्नो कसैलाई भन्न नसक्ने कुराहरू चाहिँ म यहाँ यस संस्थामा आएर विश्वासिलो म्याम हुनुहुन्छ उहाँलाई भन्छु। कतिपय साथीहरूले चाहिँ यो काउन्सिलिङ लिएर पनि ठिक हुन्छ र केही कुरा मात्र गरेर कति कुरा हुन्छ र भनेर भन्ने गर्छन्, तर पनि मैले उनीहरूलाई सम्झाइरहेको हुन्छु, मेरो जीवनका परिवर्तनहरू सुनाइरहेको हुन्छु र यसै गरेर मैले चाहिँ एउटा साथीलाई पनि लिएर आएको छु। उसको पनि जीवनमा मेरो यस्तै घटनाहरू घटेका थिए। अहिले ऊ रेगुलर आउँछ र उसको काउन्सिलिङ सेसनमा बसेर एकदमै ठुलो परिवर्तनहरू आएको बताउँछु।
So yes, as said, this is a contribution from two young people whose voices aren't heard as regularly as they should be due to connectivity, due to location, but it's really important to have those voices heard as well in ways that while we can connect online, we should also find ways to connect with people in those situations. And they raise obviously also very similar topics that have come up today, especially the aspect of counselling, which leads me nicely into the final session for today, where we've asked our colleagues in Chile to give us a few thoughts on what they thought the highlights were before we finally ask everyone present here to give a few highlights of their own, and then we'll conclude the session for today. Thank you. Over to you.
Hola, ¿se me escucha?
Sí.
Hola, bienvenidos a lo más destacado del día. Me presento, ¿no? Mi nombre es Anthony, soy vocero del colectivo Sin Fronteras y vengo representando a Chile. Hemos tenido un largo trabajo en esta reunión y esperamos brindar la información que se trabajó hoy. Eso. Le doy paso a mi compañera para que se presente.
Hola, muy buenos días, noches, tardes. Mi nombre es Saori Bereulogio, tengo 16 años y soy una de las voceras del colectivo Sin Frontera y también vengo representando a Chile. Pues como dijo mi compañero Anthony, este ha sido un muy buen día, muy buena mañana para nosotros. Nosotros y pues eso, agradecerles, muchas gracias por la invitación, por la participación y gracias a Global Campus por darnos esta oportunidad. Y antes que todo le damos la palabra a nuestro cofacilitador y también gracias por el apoyo interno, Santiago Plata.
Hola, muchas gracias Anthony y Saori. Bueno, en esta parte vamos a destacar los puntos más importantes discutidos hoy. Ahí Anthony y Saori estuvieron atentos escuchando todo para presentar un poco sobre eso. Y es importante recordar que toda la información absorbida en las sesiones vamos a dividir en puntos clave y que eso de una manera muy importante va a ser utilizada en la sesión de mañana también para, bueno, pensar y hacer las recomendaciones de manera concreta y crear puntos de acción para el segundo día de mañana. Entonces, lo que pensamos de todas las participaciones es de cómo son los acontecimientos, de cuál es el tema que estábamos hablando. Entonces es importante recordar de todo lo que fue hablado, de que la salud mental puede ser una violencia y de que si no se hace inversión desde los estados y también de las instituciones educativas, ese problema se puede generar en otros espacios también, ¿no? El impacto de la violencia física y también de las violencias en el entorno digital, en la salud mental de los niños. También cuáles son las faltas de estructura de las instituciones educativas, ¿no? Muchos hablaron de que no hay ayuda de terapia, que hay falta de información, no solo para los niños y niñas, pero también para los padres y la comunidad como un todo. Entonces, entender que concientizar la salud mental es importante y que puede ser una violencia, donde llevar adelante a nuestra planificación de acciones en la sensibilización de las escuelas, comunidades y de los gobiernos también. Entonces, podemos ahora recordar un poco de los puntos, Saori y Anthony, que ustedes tomaron nota.
Sí, exactamente. Bueno, entonces empezaremos con la conclusión. En la primera parte, que fue mecanismos educativos para la salud mental, logramos adquirir las opiniones y se las daremos lo que nosotros más nos pareció. Hay escasa información acerca de la salud mental. No hay recursos. Los niños y niñas y adolescentes son los que son más afectados en esta situación. Necesitamos más apoyos de las escuelas y familiares. Los padres creen que al autolesionarse lo ven normal. Es difícil conseguir ayuda, ya que el gobierno no se plantea como un derecho, lo cual está erróneamente. Es un derecho y se debería plantear para que ellos puedan implementarlo. También necesitamos un entorno inclusivo. El rol de los mayores es detectar en el adolescente sus emociones. Se debe ver la manera en que los adolescentes puedan expresarse y se den a conocer. Hubo una frase que se mencionó, fue: todos tenemos salud mental. Algunos tienen buena salud mental y otros falta de desarrollar. Eso sería la primera parte.
Vamos con la segunda mesa, que fue el tema de impacto de la violencia en la salud mental. Esto fue lo que pude rescatar. Igual fue en esta mesa un poco complicado, pero esto es lo que yo pude rescatar de todo esto. Se compartieron algunas experiencias sobre la violencia y que mayormente los adolescentes y niñeces somos víctimas de esta. Que sin evidencia no podemos defendernos. Esto va a que, claro, hubo alguien que mencionó esto de que la mayoría de la violencia que sufrimos es psicológica o mentalmente y que no hay cómo conseguir evidencia para defendernos o poder hacer algo ante esto. Entonces es complicado en ese aspecto, y que las niñeces nos enfrentamos día a día a muchos tipos de violencia que mayormente son idealizadas o que están tan vistas y como normales pasan, que no nos damos cuenta de que si nos hacen algo y pues seguimos con lo que es, ¿no? Y eso afecta igual harto. Por otro lado, los expertos hablaban de que es muy recomendable hablarlo, tener a alguien con quien charlar, que es bueno desahogarse, conversar, poder enfrentarnos a esto y nunca quedarnos callados. Y eso puede rescatar yo, y que la salud mental también es un tipo de violencia, aunque no esté totalmente legalizado, es un tipo de violencia y que debería ser así.
Pasando a la tercera mesa o conversación, fue competencia no sana. Lo que pudimos rescatar fue que hay presión, también los adolescentes adquieren una baja autoestima. Hay comparaciones, ya sea de familiares, profesores, etcétera, el entorno que rodea al estudiante. Hay comparaciones que va a estresar en el desarrollo del adolescente. También se idealiza mucho la comparación, es casi normal, lo cual está erróneo. Hay veces, acá surgió una opinión, que hay veces de que creemos que somos los mejores, y eso también está mal. Respecto a hablar del entorno familiar, hay veces que los padres dan tareas del hogar, también hay tareas académicas que al ser excesivo nos pone bajo presión. Eso, deben ser conscientes los padres. Deben aprender a validar a validar lo que nosotros hacemos. Eso, tener empatía, saber que hay varias opiniones de los demás que nos rodean. Y hubo una parte que se habló de competencia del mundo virtual y se dio un ejemplo de, por ejemplo, mi vida no es la misma de esta persona, o sea, no es la misma como uno le gustaría tener su vida, ¿no? Los bienes que tienen. También se dio de que deben utilizar las redes sociales para construir información y o crear espacios de conversación. Los niños al momento de perder se aíslan, se enemistan con los que los rodean, las personas que los rodean. Y también al final de la tercera mesa se dieron varios programas para la ayuda de los adolescentes. Eso.
Sí. Y eso, y que pues que eso, o sea, día a día sabemos que los adultos están mejorando, están tratando de apoyarnos, y que igual de todas formas debemos ser conscientes como adolescentes que pues nadie fue preparado para ser padre o madre. Entonces igual entender, pero claro está que no está bien que se hagan comparaciones, igual que siempre van a haber comparaciones, o sea, eso nunca se va a acabar, siempre van a haber comparaciones en tu entorno, vas a estar comparando tú mismo, la gente, a ti con otra persona, y nunca se van a dar cuenta de lo que verdaderamente tienes de bueno, y que no lo sabe hasta que pues ya no está, ¿no? Entonces eso, y cosa importante que voy a recalcar ahora, es importante que el Estado vea la salud mental como un problema que debe ser abordado, porque si no puede que a mayor grado cuando seamos adultos, se haga un problema más mayor, o sea, sea un problema ya que no lo podamos ya ver, porque cuando uno crece y crece con este problema de la salud mental, llega a ciertos grados en los que no nos podemos de cierta manera sobrellevar a nosotros mismos, y llega esto de la tasa de suicidios que se veía, que igual alguien lo tomó en cuenta en uno de estos temas que estábamos viendo, que salió igual la alta tasa de suicidio, y que pues no se podía hacer nada, y que la gente no se daba cuenta hasta cuando ya era como demasiado tarde, ya un problema que ya algo no se puede evitar ya. O sea, se podría evitar, pero no tomaron en cuenta eso antes, y pues ocurrió lo que ocurre mayormente. Eso, y muchas gracias, y
Muchas gracias por la invitación y un gusto haber participado en esto.
Igual, gracias. Gracias, Reina, y gracias a Global Campus y a Santiago. Bye.
Muchas gracias a ustedes, Anthony y Saori, por su presentación. Son puntos muy, muy importantes para llevar adelante la planificación de la acción, ¿no? Y responder algunas interrogantes de cómo, de qué son, ¿no? ¿Qué son los acontecimientos y acciones y ideas que constituyen la salud mental? También de quién o quiénes son los protagonistas, ¿no? Las personas, instituciones que se involucran en la vida de los niños y niñas alrededor del mundo, también de cuándo se sitúa la salud mental, ¿no? O sea, el contexto, y también dónde, el espacio, el lugar que involucra a la vida de los niños y niñas, también del por qué son las razones que afectan a la salud mental, los antecedentes y para qué, y por fin de cómo. ¿Qué podemos hacer en la práctica para solucionar y enfrentar los problemas? Entonces, los puntos que destacaron son muy importantes para mañana continuaremos el trabajo y pensar en la planificación de acción. Muchas gracias. Paso la palabra a Reina.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Santiago, and for that wonderful summary from Anthony. And I don't think that after such a comprehensive summary that we really need to open it up to the rest of the floor, also in the interest of time. And also the points that were made by Sohori as well, just really put to the point what we were talking today. So if everybody is in agreement, I won't open it up to the floor for more contributions, but we'll hand it straight over to Victor Karunan, who's been such a huge part of this process and setting all of this up, just to say a few words and a goodbye. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Raina, and thanks to everybody for the second session. We had an excellent first session earlier, and we now have some additional points, and I think we've taken the discussion further. I think your contributions are important in highlighting some other areas that we did not focus on in the first session. So that's an excellent start. So what I would like to do, if I could share screen, please, would be to basically make the connection between today and tomorrow. Because as you know, we have a second session tomorrow where we will start discussing what needs to be done. So I have a whole canvas here of all the points that came up in session 1 and session 2. I'm not going to go through all that. I just want to highlight a few points from this second session. Yeah. One, that mental health is one of the most neglected issues. This also came up in session 1. 2, like Najat said, mental health needs to become a life-saving service for children. 3, that we need to deal with cultural specific issues related to mental health because relate to values, norms, behaviors, etc. 4, that mental health is as much a right for children as it is for adults. 5, that is different for boys and girls. And I think in the second session, it was interesting, we spent more time talking about adolescents. And that's a new contribution that you have made, that adolescents are very different from other children. And therefore, we need to focus on this age group where there's new research that shows that adolescents are critical in terms of the age group. And talked about shifting the discussion from negative to positive. How can we do that? What needs to be done? We know, and everybody said that, children have a unique view. So your ideas, your contributions are critical, and we as adults need to listen to you, to respect your views, and to apply that to our solutions. But another important point came up in the second session. Who needs to act? Who is responsible for these challenges that children face with mental health? Is it governments? Is it parents? Is it teachers? Is it children themselves? Can we discuss this tomorrow? Who needs to do what? And like Regina said, we have a situation where our parents, teachers, and our government and others are comparing apples and oranges. How do we deal with this challenge of unhealthy competition? So, in short, these are some of the things that I would add to what our friends from Chile have already well summarized. Now, what next? Where do we move from here? So tomorrow, day 2, when we meet again at around the same time, we will move from discussion to action. In country or regional groups tomorrow, we will discuss and the children will talk about what needs to be done and by whom, when, and how. And based on that, we will develop a global children's action plan on the 3 topics that we discussed in this conference. So, before we leave, what do we need to do to prepare for tomorrow? Firstly, let's review the points that we discussed today in our discussion and see what are the highlights that we need to talk about. Let's go back and look at what are the points that came up in national consultations and pull out those action points and bring that to our discussion tomorrow so that we can then begin by talking about those action points that you talked about in national consultations and take it one step further from the discussions that we had today. So with that, a big thanks to our moderators for today. You did an excellent job. Well done. It is amazing to see how you manage your sessions. We had a good discussion between the children's perspectives and also the experts coming in at the right time to give their perspectives. Yeah. So that has generated a whole new set of ideas. Tomorrow, when we begin our session, we will try to summarize the points that came up in the session today and particularly focus on the action points so that you're able to then talk about what do we need to do. So between now and tomorrow, have a good rest. But while you rest, think about what do we need to do? That's what's most important. Yeah. From the conference, what we need to do, who needs to do what is most important. So that's your homework between now and tomorrow. So I wish you well. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for an excellent session. Yeah, you've done a great job. Thank you. And over to Raina.
Right. Well, I don't have to say anything more. See you all tomorrow. Have a lovely rest, but don't forget to think, right? Okay, bye-bye.